Hey, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining Tara and I this evening. I think we have a lot of information to provide you guys with, try to set a few things straight, explain a few of the situations that are going on with this case. And so I'm going to start off real quick. We do have the motion to not let them out with bail. So let me share that real quick. And again, thank you for being here. Thank you, Tara. Let's see.
Thank you. It's always exciting to be up here with you. It's exciting for the wrong reasons. And thank you everybody for in the chat. While Carrie is getting some things together, let me go through a couple of rules of engagement. We've got several mods in the group. Those are the lovely individuals with the little wrenches next to their names. They're going to be watching the chat for us to help us out and making sure we answer questions along the way. But if there's statements in there, comments in there, things that just do not contribute constructively to the conversation or are just disrespectful in any way, they will be removed. So just keep an eye out for that. If you're not sure about something, you ask first. So Carrie, it looks like you've got something on the screen.
All right. So this is the motion that the DA had filed the other day on the motion to hold all 4 defendants without bond. And I got this afternoon, so I'm just going to go over it with you guys. It does have a little bit more information than what the probable cause statement, not a whole lot, but a little bit. This one is just on Tiffany. I have all 4, but they're all the same. And this is just the motion to hold defendant without bail. Of course, we now know that they were not granted bail yesterday. So she's being charged with first-degree murder, which is a capital offense. And at this time, the relevant aggravating circumstances are a continuing threat to society. The evidence shows that the defendant and co-conspirators engaged in a plot to kidnap and murder the deceased, Veronica Butler and Jilian Kelley, in order to prevent the lawful granting of custody and or unsupervised visitation by the court. The defendant and conspirators attempted said crime previously by both traveling to Hugoton in an attempt to lure Veronica out of her home, and additionally planning to organize her death by throwing an anvil through her windshield while she drove down the road. Both first-degree murder and kidnapping are violent offenses under and then it gives the state definition. The maximum sentence for murder is death, life, or life without parole. The maximum sentence for kidnapping is up to 20 years. And then it has the proof of guilt is evident. See attached sworn affidavit detailing the relevant facts at the time. The state would point out that after arrest, this defendant, Tiffany Adams, did provide a recorded statement to law enforcement indicating her responsibility for the death of the deceased. Taking into consideration the rebuttable presumption of statute and is detailed in the attached affidavit, no condition would assure the safety of the community, which includes the witnesses and court personnel involved in this case. The facts are that in order to prevent Veronica Butler from regaining custody and or unsupervised supervision with her children, the defendant and conspirators were willing to commit murder. Said murder was complex and involved extensive preparation. There are statements of the co-conspirators that their problems would be taken care of because in addition to removing Veronica, they knew the path the judge walked to work. Now, faced with the consequence of a sentence of death or life in prison, the defendant and conspirators would be willing to do anything since they have shown to be willing to commit capital murder in order to limit Veronica's visitation. And so the court holds the defendant without bail as allowed under the Oklahoma Constitution. And George Leach is the district attorney on that. The rest is just the affidavit. And Tara and I went over that the other night. So the rest is all the same. So does the chat have any thoughts on that?
First question was, did she confess? It's the first one I see. So the statements coming through that Tiffany admitted responsibility. That's what we've seen in reports. Does as you're reading through the affidavit, I don't know that, was there something, go back in there for a second to see if that was in there that so there's a difference, and I don't know if Jill is in the chat tonight. I hope you are. She's an attorney that's joined us several times, and she's been gracious with her expertise. But I've heard the term responsibility used specifically when it comes to, I see you're highlighting something there. Okay, so that after the arrest, this defendant, Tiffany Adams, did provide recorded statement to law enforcement indicating her responsibility for the death of the deceased. And I think that's an important word as I was looking through Oklahoma's definitions, because definitions are important. We've been learning that a lot throughout the information we've been getting. So I don't know that responsibility means confession. I don't know if those are synonymous. It sounds like she can admit to doing something that she thought was necessary. So I don't know, Carrie, what do you think?
I feel the same way as you. I'm really not sure, and I'm certain that somebody will bring it to our attention, if there's truly a difference between indicating her responsibility and actually confessing to doing it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious as to what responsibility means, because it says here she indicated responsibility in her statement, recorded statement. She indicates responsibility, but then she pled not guilty, or at least there was a not guilty response by the judge, because none of them were represented at the time of the arraignment, if I understand correctly.
That's correct. They did not have attorneys, so the court entered a not guilty, I guess, something like that on their behalf until they have the attorneys.
Right. In History Underfoot says, I think this is where we're kind of going with this, is I wonder if Tiffany admitted responsibility but doesn't recognize she broke the law, since they don't recognize government authority. It's an interesting way to look at it. There is a couple of, I don't want to say there's a couple different ways of looking at murder and homicide and things like that. In Oklahoma, homicide just means taking somebody's life, but you have excusable homicide, you have justifiable homicide, and in this particular case, it would not surprise me if Tiffany understood all that to a point, or had somebody coaching her on that, or somehow she could come by the information, and maybe she did tell the cops, if I did do this, then because my grandchildren this, and Veronica that, and I was doing it to be a protector. And so I think there's something to the fact that she's not going to recognize she broke the law because she was doing something in defense of somebody else in her mind. Not that that makes it right, but to her, that is probably what she's thinking.
Right. And so that kind of leads into, again, thank you guys for all being here. Mermaid, thank you very much. We appreciate all of the information that you guys send to us. It's been of a huge help. Okay, so let me share this. So the next thing I'm going to lead into is going to be the fact that Paul, now we don't know how to pronounce his last name, because I'm kind of thinking it might be Grice, but that Paul Grice was named in the original affidavits, right? He was named as being with Cora and Cole Twombly at the time. So we're going to kind of go into that God's Misfits, quote unquote, group. And kind of, we see where sovereign citizen is being thrown around a lot. And myself even had a misunderstanding of what that was. So hopefully we can kind of clear some of that up for you guys. Let me go bring this other screen up here.
While you're doing that, just asking the question, could that be why the judge was at the house? Christy, I need a little bit, define that for me just a little bit. I see your screen now. Grice, as in ice cube, it looks like. Grice? Grice is correct. I'm presuming that's what you're trying to tell us, CB Slinger. Which, thank you. I'm glad I like to pronounce names correctly. So
I do
that's
too. I hate it when I'm like,
it's like
Grice. I don't mean to be disrespectful.
no, and I try
So
my
thank
best,
you.
but
Grice. Okay. I think we got it.
Grice.
Thank you.
Grice says,
Okay.
how many adults does it take to go back to
Right?
elementary reading?
Exactly. So what you're looking at on the screen here, as you can see, we have Cooks, Claire Cook, who is now married to, oh gosh, help me out. She's married to Twombly.
Is that Frank's? Yes, Frank Twombly.
Yes.
So she's now Claire Twombly.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So her, it's like a sister, or this is Mom Lacey. This is Barrett. So, and Chloe. Chloe's the one that's married to Frank. Sorry.
Okay. Yep. Yes.
Okay, so these are Lacey and Barrett Cook. Barrett Cook is the one that was the the butcher. He had a street front, building and all that good stuff. So that's who those people are. Notice the top name is Paul Jeremiah Grice.
There we go.
So that name has been coming up, right? So all these people filed on the same day, on the same exact day. It was June 6th of last year. And so this is what they filed. I'll have to switch my screen over again. And I'm not going to go through every bit of it, but I will scroll through and I'm trying to share the ones that I found important in that.
The Elkhart judge was at the house when they were all arrested. Could he have been offering a legal standpoint for some of them? I don't know. Huh. It'd be interesting to find out. It says Christy Parrish says the Elkhart judge was at the house when they were all arrested. Could he have been offering a legal standpoint for some of them?
Well, I mean, I don't like to accuse anybody of anything, but it would be hard. I kind of feel like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe, kind of, sort of. I'm not sure. Not sure. It would be awful hard to have not known things if he spent that much time at Tad's house.
Right. Yeah, I agree. So this judge has nothing to do with this? And are we talking about the same judge then? Maybe I have two different judges.
I think they're talking about the same one we are, the one that was just fired.
Okay.
Yeah, he's just a municipal judge. All right. Okay. So this that I'm looking at here is a repudiation and revocation of citizenship. This is the document that all of the individuals I just told you earlier, Paul Grice and the Cook family, Barrett and Lacey Cook, along with two of their daughters. One of those daughters is now married to Frank Twombly, who is the son of Cora and Cole, correct? This gets hard. All these names are crazy.
Yes.
All right. So I won't be able to see the chat while I go through this.
I'm helping you.
Okay, great.
I'm watching it.
So this is affidavit of truth and assertory oath, repudiation, and revocation of citizenship. And this is a whole lot of life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, that kind of thing. And the reason I'm showing you this is because this is what the Misfits believe in. So we're showing you what at least two families have filed, okay? Two families that have filed. Let me get down to where, okay. So this part right here. Now they have an overviewing organization, the American State Nationalists. that if they pay so much, there's like conferences they can go to. I know some of these people have gone to them, but there's like conferences, but they also provide this type of information. So as like how you would file to get this done. So like a template is, basically, and that's what I think has been done here. But
Mhm.
it says, let it be known that in no way, shape, or form am I, the living man or woman, a sovereign citizen or person. Nowhere in the codes does it mention a living man or woman. Yet God, in his word, the Bible, created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. So he goes on about this: a person, body, or state vested with independent and supreme authority. See sovereign citizen. So basically everything he's saying right here is he's not a sovereign citizen, okay? Therefore, it is impossible for me to be both a living man or woman and a sovereign citizen person. Furthermore, it's impossible to be a sovereign and a citizen, as they are the opposite of each other in every way. Any presumptions, assumptions to the contrary of who I am is rebutted from the start. And here again, Paul Jeremiah of the genealogy of Grice. I am not a sovereign citizen. I am not a resident, employee, or citizen of the United States government, which they call a corporation. My relationship to that federal entity as far as jurisdiction is that of a non-resident alien to the corporate United States government, also known as an American state national or lawful bloodline American.
Yeah.
He goes on to talk more about the powers of earth, God's law. He's a free and a natural man. He claims his children as his God-given property and subject to none other. I waive none of my God-given rights or duties in the upbringing of my offspring. Some of my reasons for repudiating that citizenship status are defined in the articles and by the totality of this document. It says, I've lived a productive and eventful life, now in anticipation of the end and God's mercy and grace. But undoubtedly, the singularly most horrific moment of that life was the conviction to repudiate my citizenship of the United States. Those words, repudiate my citizenship, crushed the very soul within me. I stood beneath that war flag I served with pride for my entire life, not even knowing the existence of the civil flag of peace until a few years ago. The memories of our brave young men, comrades in arms who defended the Constitution, who never had a life flood before me. They sacrificed all of their tomorrows so that I might have mine. Those memories will always remain with me and be remembered with humble honor and gratitude. Our educational propaganda system is a joke. Our children are taught only what the fraud of government once known and nothing more. The awful knowledge and horror of betrayal by my own government, of which I was once so proud, is an unbearable sorrow that I must now carry to my grave, but I shall do so a free man. Perhaps the American people are like the frog that is heated slowly to a boil in a pot of water. If we had detected the heat sooner, we could have jumped out, saving both the Republic and ourselves. So very anti. Do you have anything to add on to this or questions or comments?
I know I'll help draw the line specifically between sovereign citizen and the American state national to make it just as clear and quick as possible. A sovereign believes in the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, so they will lean into the amendments and things of that nature. A true sovereign citizen. And then an American state national believes they're property of God, so they can roam the land freely. They don't have to pay taxes. They don't have to answer to the laws, the government, anything of that nature. They don't belong to the land. They get to use the land. And so there is a distinct difference between the two, which is why that it was made very clear in literally black and white on this document. Grice is saying, I am not a sovereign citizen, because if he admits to being a sovereign citizen, that means the Constitution applies to him by his belief system.
Yes.
So that's that between all of that and all of, there's so many pages in there, and there's no way we should read all of them because there's 44.
No, there's no way
But
I'll read all of them.
he goes on to basically list different failures of the US government over the past few years. So there is a lot of political, we'll call it case study he pulls, and then there's a lot of Bible verses that he inserts. So as
Yes.
a sort of the Bible versus the law and how the law is wrong. And so
And this was filed July 6th of 2023.
yeah. Yep.
Whoever was asking.
Yep.
Okay, so let me continue here. This part is just kind of interesting considering the circumstances he now finds himself, or these other people are. But they have increased our prison population to nearly 2.5 million inmates, the largest imprisonment of its own citizens of any country in the world. They now prepare plans for new prison construction for the new millennium, projecting 20 years in advance and building cells for our as yet unborn children, as though all or most of our offspring will be criminals. This reality alone reduces the expression, the home of the brave and the land of the free, to a mere illusion and an oxymoron. And then he goes on, they have done this not to secure justice, to protect the people, but are imprisoning people without a crime. No victim, no crime.
Yep.
Then let's see. This one, completely blatantly obvious and repulsive to sit in a court of fake law and watch good men and women citizens supposed to be under the protection of government sent to prison by these actors when there was no victim and no harm to another living soul. Why, I ask? Because it's a for-profit system, a way to tax the poor with no regard to destruction of lives of citizens. Why? Bonds. The court collects billions from the people's trust, and judges and prosecutors receive net retentions, effectively commissions. He goes on to talk about child kidnapping and trafficking by Child Protective Service, things like that. The privilege against self-incrimination is neither accorded to the passive resistant nor to the person who is ignorant of his rights, nor to one indifferent thereto. It is a fighting clause. Its benefits can be retained only by sustained combat. It cannot be claimed by attorney or solicitor. It is valid only when insisted upon by a belligerent claimant in person.
Yeah, it's I want to, as you're reading that, I saw something I thought was funny. Where did Lisa says filed how? Where? Is this BS legal? If they don't like it here, they are free to leave. I had to read that. It's always fun to break up the seriousness with the humor.
Definitely.
So curious to see if these people are arrested, if they will accept court-appointed attorneys, or will their organization provide legal counsel. So they, as far as I know, they're getting court-appointed attorneys. That's some of the stuff that we can kind of lean into or get into a little bit. Is there's a lot of understanding that these four have access to liquid cash, and through many individuals, we keep hearing the same theme. And anybody's welcome to private message me or say it in the comments if you want to. The four that have been arrested are cash poor, although land rich type of thing. So I don't know that they can afford everything. I'm not sure how some of the legal stuff with Wrangler's kids and Veronica's kids kept going down, but it's a weird kind of, it's interesting. So I don't know how that's going to go down. It'll be very interesting.
Lori said, how can Tiffany be sovereign and elected Republican chair of Cimarron County? And somebody else explained this to me so perfectly earlier, so I'm probably just going to use their words the best of my ability. But Tiffany and Tad have not claimed this. Not that we can find. So the ones we could find were Paul Grice and the Cooks. They are part of the Misfit group, as are Tiffany and Tad, okay? But Tiffany and Tad, as far as we can find, they have never claimed this sovereignship, or denouncing citizenship is basically more like it. It's not, they're not claiming sovereignty.
Right. Yeah. Yes. So
if she had have done that, she wouldn't have been able to sit on those boards. Therefore, she wouldn't have had that power that she was able to have by sitting on the hospital board or the school board, things like that. Had she renounced her citizenship, she couldn't have done things like that. Also, they filed this July of 23. This court battle has been ongoing for years. How would it have looked to the court if Tiffany had walked in there and Veronica's attorney pulls out this kind of stuff? I mean, the judge is going to look at her like she's a whack job. So I think those are my thinking. That's the reasons why she has not claimed this, or filed this on her.
Mm-hmm. Well, the sovereign citizenship that is being utilized in that part of the country is a little bit different than the actual sovereign citizenship that most people are aware of. It's kind of if it benefits me, that's how I'm going to use it. So it's kind of being used in a sort of, let's be fun and call it a misfit sort of way, to however it best suits their needs. And so, hello, sir, says Tiffany was not elected to the hospital board. It is not an elected position. So there we go. Maybe that's the case there with Tiffany. If she can be appointed on a board, not elected to, if it's not an elected position, that's a good delineation.
And she would have been appointed to the school board as well. Yeah, definitely. So Paul goes on to talk about the Bill of Rights, pretty much trashes it. He talks about Waco, how the United States showed its utter contempt for the unalienable rights of its citizens and the sovereigns of its creation. He goes on talking about that. Then he talks about the Bundy Ranch in Nevada that happened in 2014, again in January 2016 in Oregon. I don't want to read all of that, but those are the kind of things that he's bringing up. Now he goes on to say, I am not anti-government, anti-military, or anti-American. Quite the contrary. For generations, my family served the United States of America in both active and inactive service all over the world. Veterans like my family joined the military because of our love of country and our constitutional obligation. I never imagined there were any real, quote unquote, domestic enemies. Today, I know otherwise. Following is a partial example of the activities of those domestic enemies. He talks about things that a lot of it's conspiracy, QAnon kind of things. That's how I see it anyway. But that's a whole lot of it. And there's still some more important information on here, though. If I can scroll down. This was 44 pages long.
Yeah, it's a lot of detail. Most of it, it's just the case law versus the Bible quote for the most part, it seems like.
Right. He says, this is today we are poisoned by our spraying of our air, food, water, doctors' dealings, legal death, drugs, all at the blessing of government. Despicable. Shame on you. This is but a few of the many reasons, all reasons would fill many volumes, that I, a God-fearing living soul, must sever my relationship with the United States government. Too easy, heavy burden on my soul these foul deeds have laden it with. The water has gotten far too hot for me, for this frog, and is evaporating under the boil. Then he talks about angels coming down from heaven. As one of God's people, I must now also leave Babylon the Great and not partake of her sins any longer, lest I receive her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God will remember her iniquities. May God have mercy on the people of the United States. It's just, this is like just so crazy to me. When I read it, I'm like, what in the world?
It is. I mean, so for us, with the normal everyday U.S. American citizen, that this is ludicrous. It sounds insane. It's like just be a joiner. You don't have to join into the mainstream of things. You can speak as you want. You can believe as you want. You can do as you want without trespassing others. Why do you need to go to this route? And the reason being is to avoid anything legal coming upon you, to make a point. It's like protesting everything that is the government all the way around.
Yeah. And he does say in here, he talks about taxes, how that's completely basically illegal of the United States government. So they don't feel that they should have to pay any taxes. I don't know where they're a citizen of. They're not. They're an American
not.
state national, and that's just exactly what they are called. They are not
Yep.
sovereign citizens. They're American state nationals. He does explain a little bit more. Talks about the federal income tax. Definitely don't like taxes. It looks like somewhere he put everything like in a trust. I'm just trying not to bore people with a lot of the boring stuff in it.
It's a lot. We went cross-eyed looking through this thing. Oh my gosh. It was unreal to go through, and you read it and you're like, what are you thinking? What were you doing when you wrote this? But there's so much research that went into this, and
Oh my goodness.
I've heard several things about Paul. I've read several things about Paul online, and this kind of, you can't fire me, I quit. You can't arrest me. I'm not a player. You can't pick me. I'm not pickable. And so it is his way of saying I can walk the land as I please. Now, what's funny about this was ironic, I think, based on the affidavit. I'm going to say that because he's not been arrested. Therefore, there's been no arraignment. He has to live by God's law. So he has to lean back into that. He's not supposed to be doing anything, say maybe against the 10 Commandments. I believe in this particular document, and Kara, I think it's on the last page. Can't remember for sure, but it's toward the end where he basically says, "You're still love thy neighbor."
Yeah.
So it's like, I think maybe you missed
so
some
much
of your
contradiction. Yes, so much contradiction. And this is getting towards the end of it. Well, mostly towards the end of it. He goes on to say, since one has always been a non-resident alien of the United States, always known as an American state national. So according to them, all of us, every single person in this chat, we have always been non-resident aliens of the United States. It seems absurd that you would be required to prove it with rebuttal evidence, but that's exactly what you have to do. The government and the courts are not going to let you easily out of the system that it took them so long to put in place to fund their criminal activity. That right there tells you everything you need to know about how they feel about government. Therefore, I demand this affidavit be certified by the Secretary of State as evidence of my status as an American state national, and a passport correction be made to reflect such status in jurisdictional venue and returned to me. Let's see. Goes on, more state citizenship law case. State citizenship test. Okay, so this was the final part I wanted to read. So the conclusion: on every front, with blinding speed and inexhaustible power, the evil forces of darkness of the New World Order are closing a ring of fire on freedom. In every domain and field of human endeavor, the choking, suffocating idolatry permeates all fields of human thought, corrupting our language, destroying truth and justice, demolishing integrity and virtue, enacting totalitarian legislation, and controlling education and communities. Above all, the vilest evil is the destruction of our unborn children, a thing so horribly vile that even maggots and filth do not do. Then they attack on our faith and its foundations of biblical thought and experience, demonizing God's followers as religious right-wing zealots to be held in ill repute, ever rapidly expanding its deviancy of evil, closing the parameters on the just, as the United States collapses inextricably into Babylon. So I hereby repudiate, rescind, renounce, and disavow any citizenship status with the United States government that I may have inadvertently acquired by any scheme for the reasons detailed in the foregoing articles. My birthright now being resecured as a member of the sovereign body of free men and women known as Americans, American state nationals. I hereby pledge my allegiance only to God. I shall live by the commandment of love thy neighbor and shall do no harm in my private pursuit of life, liberty, happiness. It's really interesting, very interesting to read. The rest just is kind of just, legal kind of stuff.
Fluff.
Yeah.
Fluff.
And there's his actually the certified certification on it. So yeah. So that craziness.
Very crazy. Oh.
All right. Do we want to answer questions or do
we probably should, because it's the chat is hopping. So has Paul been talking? I don't think so. I've heard a lot of people come at me about him, but I've not heard anything from him or seen that anybody has heard from him. I don't know about you, Carrie.
Nope. I've heard that he's like walking around town working and acting like nothing's happened. So, but then I don't know those people. Sources that we do have said he's hiding out. So I'm not really sure which. At this point, I don't even know what he's hiding from. I mean, they sealed all of these warrants before they did anything. So it's highly likely that there is one out there for him that is still sealed, and we just don't know any more information.
Yep. Hopefully we'll find out one way or another. He is smart crazy.
Oksana, yeah, that's what we said yesterday in the group. They were all requesting public counsel. I mean, this is a DP case. That's an expensive case, because you have to have specific attorneys that can even do those cases. And then you're going to need a team of attorneys. And these people don't have that kind of money. They don't. They, like Tara said earlier, they're cash strapped. They might have a lot of property with a whole lot of, mortgages and liens or whatever. But as far as cash, I just don't think that they have that.
Nope, I don't think so either. I was trying to go through the chat. It's very active. So do the sovereign citizens pay taxes?
I don't think so. I mean, he states in that thing, well, the sovereign citizens, I don't know. We're talking about the American state nationals, which is what these people are. So he specifically says he's not a sovereign citizen. He denounces all citizenship from the United States. So I guess if you've denounced your citizenship, you would expect that you're not going to be paying taxes. I don't know. What are your thoughts? And I'm hoping we can get somebody that's like kind of an expert at this stuff that will come and talk to us about us. That would be amazing if we could do that.
Yeah, it's hard to get through it. It's, you kind of wonder how much, who helped them get through all that kind of stuff? Oh, there we go. It is, I see what you have on the screen there. So they're poor and not rich, like everyone's saying they had power. So WTF is going down. They don't need money to have power. Having land and influence, there's a lot of ways to get power without money. There's a lot of ways to influence others and get what you want and need outside of money. So I don't know that money has a lot to do with this at all.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Beverly Goodrow said, I'd say this is a copy being circulated around, not that he actually authored it. That's what I mean, pretty certain of that. You can look up American State Nationalists. They have their own website. And like I said earlier, if you pay a yearly member fee, you can also go to conferences, things like that. But they have all these legal document templates for the people that want to do it. So basically, he just had to probably just add in his names and kids' names and that kind of thing and sign it.
But you're right. Good point. So from Cole's FB post, I say he votes, so he may not be an American state nationalist. He could vote before renouncing his citizenship, but not after. To my understanding, an American state national cannot vote. They can own land. I'm not sure how they would get a hold of land because of the things you have to get land. So I think there's some areas of blurriness to go still kind of clear up. See
Yeah,
there.
definitely. Where did
That is
Paul Grice file? Oh, he filed this in Boise City, Cimarron County last year.
Mhm.
And like we said earlier, the Cook family also did the same, as well as one of their daughters that's now married to Cole Twombly's son, Frank.
Mhm.
Correct? Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is just a post that, obviously most people have seen it. But this was, Cole Twombly, now sitting in jail. He said, huge, huge shout out to the Keys community and the Misfits for an awesome prayer in the park tonight. Keys is claimed for the Almighty God through Jesus' name. Nothing can stop what is coming. The wording of it just gives me the EBGBs.
Creepy.
It really does.
So and yeah, it just speaks to it speaks to like national news type of stuff, right? It just doesn't speak kindly whatsoever.
Right.
But it might be worthwhile to point out that in that particular post, Cole Twombly is a part of the Misfits. But I'll note that he does not use the term God's Misfits. He just says Misfits. And in doing some of the research into what that means, because originally this was all identified as a cult, a crazy, scary cult. And so we looked into that and we started to get some smoothing out of those lines that it's not a cult by the typical traditional sense of the word, but it's basically a bunch of people who really didn't care for everything their respective churches were saying. And so they just kind of went their own way, and eventually in creating their own little groups, they found one another. And I think there's just several families that they meet and they do, from what a lot of people say, they just do the typical church thing on their own time and their own, could be residences, could be wherever they decide to meet, the Keys area, for instance. And so, but I have heard they are very much one-sided in political beliefs. And so that's probably where some of that fear factoring comes in. I'm not sure. If she was read her Miranda rights and then confessed to murder, she's in trouble. I hope so. That would be great. That'd be awesome. Fruit Loops. I like when we put the funny ones up there.
I do too. You
You
have to get a little bit of humor for sure.
You do.
That's exactly correct, Oksana. I went on their website, so I just know that. And I also know that the members that we know of for a fact are members. And we're going to tell you a little bit more about that. I have a couple of stories from people that actually attended meetings, and I have kind of two sides to the story. And over our research and stuff, I'm gonna give you some of that information. This was from Paul Grice, December 20th, 23. And here he is saying not quite the same thing as Cole, but he says, I love life because now that I actually understand what life really is, it makes me laugh because if I were woke, I would be depressed. Instead, I am not woke. I am a people and we are on an amazing journey in life. So instead of being controlled, we are taking control of the situation and using the authority that God gave us. His people have the authority to be the spiritual man or woman that God meant for us to be. So my new religion isn't new. It's just real. Okay.
Doesn't sound any less. It aligns. It fits. It's legit. And that's coming from, I mean, I'm going to speak for myself. That's coming from somebody that doesn't live in the area, isn't living the same life down there with the remote area. I live in a big city. And so to me, and that's one of the things you got to take into account as perspective to somebody that is close to Paul and others that believe like him. This makes sense. This is great. This is something they can get behind. For me, I'm just like, we're not going to be riding the same car together, right? Like
Right.
we're cool.
No.
And I am one to say that. So for those in the chat that know me, that's totally something I would say. But again, for others out there who have a different experience, this is Totally on point. Makes sense.
Definitely.
The Facebook post tells you how bright these people are. Guy wrote a paragraph with no periods, nothing.
Oh my gosh. I mean,
Longest
it's not wrong.
ever.
Try reading all that in one sitting.
In one breath. Yeah.
All of a sudden, my brain's going. I have no clue what's going on.
That goes exactly to the points of everybody who said the dude did not write that. It's clearly a template, and here's proof right there on the screen. He can't use grammar.
All right.
So here we go. Our punctuation. That's awesome. Oh my goodness. What do you have on the screen?
Use punctuation.
And I'll notice that you didn't use a period at the end of that, Sophie. I'm just saying.
Right.
Double.
Oh my goodness, you guys.
And we're just having fun with you guys in the chat.
We have to. Okay, so this next one, I have somebody that's really helped a lot in getting me a lot of this information, because as you can imagine, there's a ton of research, and this isn't even everything that we have. This is just the tip of the iceberg, so that we can kind of hopefully set it straight on what are the Misfits, who are the Misfits, how deep does it go, what are they about, that kind of thing. So that is what at least I'm trying to clarify right now. Hopefully it's making some sense to you guys. If not right now, hopefully it will. But this was an article I was sent from 2014. And the title, you can see, Religious Fundamentalists Settle in the Oklahoma Panhandle. Now, people that are from that area, that lived in that area, they're going to remember this. But for the rest of the world watching, they have no clue, okay? So Boise City, which is not very far from like where Cole and Cora live. I want to say it was maybe, gosh, I don't know. Somebody can correct me. 25 minutes, 30 maybe. I'm not sure. But at Boise City, about 300 people crowded into the banquet hall at the county fairgrounds in this panhandle town, anxious to talk about the small group of strangers who had moved into their midst. Men in boots, baseball caps, and cowboy hats milled about, while women manned themselves against the early July heat. A sign outside the entrance warned, "This is a civil meeting. Anyone disrupting the peace will be escorted out." "The whole town's here," Jennifer said to a friend sitting in a folding metal chair next to her. She glanced around the cavernous room. She spotted a news crew from a television station in Amarillo, Texas, 120 miles away. "They're going to portray this as a witch hunt," she offered. About 18 months ago, a small group of religious fundamentalists settled in Boise City. Others followed. Soon, the group, members of the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, began buying property in town and competing for local construction jobs and other work. Today, about a dozen members, several of whom are brothers, live in Boise City. The group's arrival prompted fear among some townsfolk. They'd heard the stories about how many of the church's estimated 10,000 members had moved into towns in Arizona, Colorado, and elsewhere, taking over local government and the public schools, building compounds, sanctioning child marriages, and harassing and driving out non-members by vandalizing property and destroying crops. They'd heard the stories about Warren Jeffs, the polygamous sex prophet, once among the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives. Jeffs now serving life sentence in Texas prison. Many, like this lady, the mother of a 3-year-old daughter, worried that the same could be soon be in store for Boise City. Now she sat, waiting to hear from 2 men invited to town to share what they knew about the group. As the meeting began, a local minister offered a prayer asking for understanding and civility. For some on this summer night, it would be in short supply. So just a few hours before and a few blocks away, George Barlow and his wife, Virginia, sat in a room at the Cimarron Heritage Center Museum, where they volunteer, trying to understand the hatred directed toward them by some of their new neighbors. George, 52, sported jeans and a dark blue button-up work shirt. Virginia, 48, her hair in a bun, wore a homemade long-sleeved ankle-length blue dress. George said he'd come to Oklahoma from North Dakota in 2013 for the same reason 8 of his brothers had settled in the Boise City area in recent months: work. Most of the men are tradesmen, electricians, drywallers, carpenters. George works as a mechanic. "It doesn't take a rocket scientist to see this place needed some help," George Barlow said in a soft-spoken voice. Boise City sits about 330 miles northwest of Oklahoma City in Cimarron County. an area known in the late 1800s as No Man's Land. The town was established in 1908 by 3 men, later convicted of fraud, in part for alleging the area had abundant natural resources and that rivers, there's no rivers, that rivers ran through the arid, treeless town. The railroad came in 1925, but Boise City's greatest notoriety may have come in 1943 when a B-17 bomber mistakenly dropped 6 practice bombs on the town square, damaging a garage, sidewalk, and a church. By 1950, the town's population reached about 1,900. It's mostly driven by ranching, farming, oil, and gas production. Now, about 1,300 people call Boise City home. It goes on to talk about Barlow, who had come in. They had said that they had been sent away. They've been excommunicated from the church. And his wife said, I actually had reported on something that someone else had done and my church feelings or my true feelings. And that's why I was told to go away. But I brought my children with me because they're my priority and my concern and responsibility before God. They don't participate in polygamy. They don't believe in child marriage. They say any SA abuse of children that occurred is not in line with teachings of their faith. They both declined to discuss Jeff's, but one of George's brother was quoted in a Guyman newspaper saying he believed that Jeff's was innocent and wrongfully imprisoned. I'm going to stop for a second because I got a cough.
Yeah. We covered the child marriages. Oh, let me know when you're back. I didn't want to.
Yeah.
A lot of people in here. We're really glad to see.
Thank you for being here. Then let's see. This talks about him and his brothers moving to Boise City. I don't know if the investigators think we're starting some sort of compound, Barlow said. It's nothing like that. In the lobby of his office in the Cimarron County Courthouse on the town square, Sheriff Leon Apple measured his words when talking briefly about Boise City's newest residents. Apple said he'd, quote unquote, checked around a little on the newcomers. They're not doing anything illegal, Apple said, and we're not trying to push on their constitutional rights or anything like that. Asked why he thought the group might have selected to relocate to Boise City, Apple said, I do know that they look for secluded areas that are under financial stress. That seems to be where they go. The place they came out of before this in Arizona, it's identical to this place. How identical? Right down to everything, Apple responded. Since the group's members began arriving, Apple said he'd received numerous calls from concerned parents. It's all new to me. I really don't know what their purpose is, to be honest, Apple said. And this is just kind of somebody who said in defense. Some people there were leery. Some of them said that they're here to get our little girls. They think it's a lynching for the Barlows. Just that kind of stuff. Let's see if there was anything else very interesting. But yeah, there was like 300 people in Boise City that were in attendance of this meeting. It'd be really interesting to hear from people that were actually there. The rest of it's just basically, people are kind of scared, not judging him on his religion. If he wants to practice the way he practices, that's fine. I'm not going to let my child be a victim. Things like that. Knowledge is the answer. Find out as much as you can. That's a lot of information there. So you guys can look this up. I will drop the link and you can read the entire article. But this was from, I think, what was it, 2014.
So it's about 10 years ago then.
Yeah.
Up, and she's dropped the link into the chat, folks, so you can take a look at it from there. What does FLDS stand for? CB Slinger is asking. And there it is. For Latter-day Saints. FLDS has nothing to do with the God's Misfits. Well, we need to clarify, I don't think it's actually God's Misfits. That's actually a group down in New Mexico. I think these are just the Misfits. And rumor has it, it was, I think, a joke, Carrie, to call themselves the Misfits, and it kind of stuck.
With Cole. Yep, it was a joke with Cole. And he just kind of said it one day or night, just kind of joking around, and then it stuck. But they absolutely are nothing like the other God's Misfits that have been passed around on Facebook. Those people have a website. They do really good things. So absolutely not the same. Now, this last article I'm going to share, and then I have some kind of stories to tell you from just kind of gathered from the information that I've spoken with people that know who is in the group, that they have been to meetings. And I was able to get two sides of things. So I'm going to share some of that with you. I do have permission. Obviously, we would never give away any sources, their identities. They want to be anonymous. And I agree with that. Right now, people are still a little bit scared, whether there's some telling you they are, that they aren't. Well, maybe they aren't, but there's a big majority that is as well. Not to the extent they were, but the whole situation with Paul being named, but then we know nothing else, that does make some people a little nervous as well. But this last article is exactly what American state nationals are. And that is what this group that jokingly started calling themselves God's Misfits. And Cole in his post just says Misfits. So this is the American state nationals, understanding the behavior and ideology of sovereign citizens. And this is intended for police officers, law enforcement. So it's from police1.com. And I'll put that link in there as well in case I don't read the whole thing, which I probably won't. But it's going to give you a very, very good idea of what this is all about. All right. So what are American state nationals? They are a growing group in the United States and Canada. The group's leaders conduct monthly seminars across the United States to instruct followers on becoming American state nationals. Recently, they have expanded their teaching to include freedom coaches in all 50 states who now host their own seminars. I can tell you that Cole and his wife have attended these seminars. It's also where they got the information. Paul got his information and the Cooks got their information to be able to do 44-page legal thing to renounce their citizenship. So ASNs assert they are not sovereign citizens. They sell merchandise that says they are not sovereign citizens and often argue the term is an oxymoron used to defame or unfairly categorize them. And Paul does say something similar to that in his filing. They reject the label because it's been associated with domestic terrorism, believing they do not fit this characterization. However, regardless of their self-identification, their tactics, behavior, ideology, and language align with those of the sovereign citizen movement. As the saying goes, as a thing acts, so it is. In addition to in-person seminars that cost about $150 to $200 a person, ASNs also purchase materials through websites and via social media. One popular product for sale is the Freedom Bundle, priced between $175 to $500. This bundle contains a set of documents purported to help individuals move into the private and gain standing. Individuals complete these forms and send specific documents to courts and certain government agencies. Pima County, Arizona has become a preferred location for ASNs to file their documentation, attracting submissions from individuals who do not reside in the state. For ASNs, recording their documents signifies the repudiation of their United States citizenship, thereby ending any contract with the United States government. They believe this action exempts them from the jurisdiction of all U.S. laws and codes. All U.S. laws and codes, rendering them immune to government interference in their lives. Despite the lack of merit or legitimacy in these ideas, this ideology is currently being taught and embraced by American state nationals. How are we doing so far with the chat, Tara?
It's still busy. Just a lot of statements and
anything
to
answer?
I don't think so. I think it's just kind of hard to wrap your brain around the idea of throwing a adult-sized immature temper tantrum in the middle of middle of the law and say, no, I don't want to, you can't make me. They are asking for links to the document, things of that nature. But I think it's just a lot to take in that this is an actual thing. And I know reading all this stuff seems boring. We've said that a few times
but
in
it's
the other
really
live, but
important to understand what
it
who
is.
and what they are. And a lot has been put out, spread out, that is not, it's not really the truth of it. So that
Yeah,
it is kind of boring. It's kind of
it's
interesting too.
it is very interesting.
But if you're going to follow the case, you need to know who the players are and what their ideologies and things
Right.
like that are. And so it's really important that way.
And we are going to get to Wrangler,
but
folks. Hold on.
yes, we are.
There's several chat. We are going to get to Wrangler. We just wanted to lay out this groundwork, and get this, kind of spell this stuff out to help understand. As Pioneer Protagonist had said, I just said that wrong. Pine Needle Protagonist has said, there's a deep dive to understand the psyche behind what's going on. This is not just a simple, I'm mad at you. This is what I'm going to do to you on the side of the road. This is deeper than that. So this is what we're kind of wrapping our heads around and dragging you guys along with us for it.
Yes, thank you. Because it's really important to understand, if we're going to talk about the case, if people are going to talk about God's misfits, then Tara and I want you to have the correct information. And a lot of what has come out has not been correct information. And, we really just kept holding off, so that we could gather more information, research more facts, get more verification of what we knew, so that we can safely say, to the best of our ability, what we're presenting to you right now. This is what's going on. This is who they are, and this is what they are. Leaders of the ASN teach that acquiring a United States passport is one of the steps to becoming an ASN. Now, remember, in Paul's documents, he mentions his passport. They instruct followers to apply for non-national citizen passports, which they believe officially recognizes their status as ASNs by the U.S. Department of State. They also believe that the passport holder has been placed on a special, quote unquote, do not detain, do not interrogate list. And as a special bonus, the passport holder now has a concealed weapon permit valid in all 50 states that cannot be revoked. However, there's no evidence to support these claims, but that's what they think. Followers also believe that possessing this special U.S. passport grants them diplomatic immunity, an entirely baseless notion. None of the teachings related to this special passport are valid or real, yet ASNs believe in them and act accordingly. There is a growing trend of ASNs presenting these passports to law enforcement when asked for identification during traffic stops. Encountering someone offering their passport in such a situation is an indicator you may be dealing with an ASN. Then it goes on to talk about a high-profile incident in Farmington, Utah, and that was the fatal shooting of Chase Allen during a traffic stop. He had an illegal ASN-themed license plate. So that is what that is about. The ASNs view police officers as quote-unquote policy enforcement agents tasked with arresting code breakers. This perspective aligns with the belief common among sovereign citizen ideology that law enforcement officials serve the corporation of the United States. ASNs believe that by filing certain paperwork, they've exempted themselves from the need to adhere to any U.S. codes or laws and act in accordance with these beliefs. They do not respect law enforcement and deny they have any authority or jurisdiction over them. They believe that police officers need to be educated about the law, particularly concerning the ASN's God-given right to travel. Some have proposed conducting training sessions for all police officers to disseminate their beliefs. They also see traffic stops as opportunities for re-educating police by presenting officers with paperwork, which ASNs carry in their vehicles. A leader of the group markets a binder of materials for $199, which includes the right to travel documents designed to be handed directly to the police. So if an ASN receives a ticket from law enforcement, they are advised to resend the ticket within 72 hours. This rescission can be attempted either by visiting the police department in person or by mailing the ticket back to the police with a specific phrase written across it at a 45-degree angle in red ink. Those phrases include 72-hour right of rescission. Your offer to contract with me is not accepted while traveling in private. I provided a passport, not a license. Can you imagine? I can't imagine saying all this to an officer.
Mm-mm.
I just can't even imagine. It goes on to say that when an officer encounters a sovereign citizen, you're not dealing with an ordinary one. They're far from typical due to the unique ideology that they do have. They reject the legitimacy of the United States government, its laws, and its court system. They consider themselves immune to all United States laws and believe they are not subject to the authority of law enforcement officers or judges in a courtroom. They also don't need a driver's license. If anybody's seeing Tiffany's record, now she has not claimed this status to our knowledge, but I'm wondering how she has a license because she's got quite the traffic history. You still there, Tara?
Yeah,
I think
I'm still here. I got into my rabbit hole of comments over here.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah, it's so no, they're not above the law because they'd have to recognize the law. There's no law. To them, there is just no law.
Yeah.
Which would be interesting how some of them will argue that in the court of law. That'd be very interesting.
Now, as for the ones that are already arrested, none of them have claimed this status yet, right? So it's just Paul and the Cooks. The Cooks are where the children were, and I have a little information on that, on the Cooks, because how it kind of ties in. So this is my understanding of quote unquote God's misfits, which we're not going to call them that anymore. For two reasons. That's not what they are. And secondly, it's really affecting the organization that does do really good. But this is a group of 4 families. You have Cooks, which is Barrett Cook and his wife. That is the man that was the butcher. He shut down his operation to the public and went private only with it. They have all claimed now, they've all, given back their United States citizenship. That's the Cooks. And then you have Paul Grice, that is name is mentioned in the affidavit, but we don't know where they're going with that. The ones that are sitting currently, I'm surprised that they haven't, at least the Twombly's. I'm really surprised that we haven't found one for them yet. Tad and Tiffany, that doesn't surprise me because I think it would have affected this custody battle quite a bit when Veronica's, attorney brought up this kind of document that this is, the kind of belief system and what have you. So that is the extent of like the background information on what they actually are, the American State Nationals. And the next is just get to that real quick.
Lots of comments about all of this stuff.
Okay.
The Misfits were a punk band.
Right. So this is, and I'm going to keep this in complete confidentiality. I'm going to remove as much any kind of identifying information. But just know that we receive multiple hundreds of messages a day. That doesn't include phone calls. And we have gotten our information from many sources. Okay. So a lot of, what we might tell you it's coming from multiple different sources. This one is, this is in regard to the group out at Plainview School, which the Twombly's live on the property right behind that, right? I attended a couple of these so-called Bible studies potlucks about a month or 2 ago. They're invite only. Wednesday night is at a place by Tad and Tiffany's, and Sunday night is at the Plainview School mentioned in the post, but not in the schoolhouse. It's in a house there. Now, if you remember, the Plainview School was where we were going to search because that psychic kept saying school. And it was the only school we had not looked at yet. There is no Bible study. They pray before you eat and before you leave on Sunday. They pray over you. All men carry guns. Wednesday isn't as big of a gathering as Sunday. The first time we attended, we were told, like everybody is, the story of how they were keeping the kids from both parents and hiding them at a house by Tad and Tiffany's. Told the story of how it's no longer Barrett's butcher block due to them not wanting inspected. So some things had to be changed. Tad showed the first night on Wednesday, and Tiffany and Tad came on a Sunday. Mainly, they drink and talk and play a board game and eat. They call it church. Where is it? They call it church, but there's no talk of God or scriptures or Bible study. They do talk a lot about taking a stand and defending their places with everything. The cooks is where the children are every day. Now, remember, the cooks also have denounced their United States citizenship. All the younger kids and cooks' kids are there all day, most every day. They did put a big gate up in their driveway after the and this was while I was out there. After the inspector, they put the gate up shortly before all this went down. But it was at their driveway, and it was after the inspector came for the butcher shop. They changed the farm name. They're no longer calling themselves a butcher shop, but obviously Cook still does do that just privately. They homeschool, the Cooks homeschool their own children. They also homeschool the Grice's kids. And Tiffany's children, or Tiffany's grandkids, Veronica's children, actually went to a private Christian co-op. And I know that they were there every day, but Tiffany was definitely trying to get a school between her and the Twombly's. They were trying to set up a school out there for this next school year because the Christian one that the kids are all currently attending wasn't quite religious enough for them. Their words, not mine. I know the day the police went to Cook's to see if the kids were there, they were told they weren't. They were, in fact, there. And then I think it was some about the pageant. Somebody made a post about that, actually.
That pageant's a pretty big deal if it's the one that I think I've heard of a few times.
Yeah, it's huge. Change the farm name. Okay. So that's what I have from that one. Then I also have another, and this I'm just going to do as a story. In 2020, Frank's brother died. That's Vern that everybody's heard about. This person that I spoke with actually went to Vern's service and said that things just felt really strange there. And the person couldn't put any, couldn't put the finger on it, but it just felt strange while they were there. The next summer, this individual's kids went out to the Twomblys for a 4-H type of thing. So the Twomblys, would do things like this a whole lot. That's why so many people are in shock. Now, Cole and Frank, they were extremely busy with, their guns and things like that. But one of the individual's children had been baptized shortly before. Now, this is the person I'm talking to. Their child had been baptized not too long before this visit out there. And Cole told them that the individual wasn't doing a good job parenting and should leave said child there and let him get the child right with Jesus. So to me, that was what really stood out in that conversation, is that he was trying to get these, people to leave one of their children with them to get right with Jesus because they weren't doing a very good job parenting. And this person said, said child had no, wasn't a troublemaker or anything. There was no reason for that to have been said. When the psychic was mentioning the school, then this person told us, go check the Griggs school, as her gut just sunk. And that's why we were out there, when we were out there searching. Barrett and Lacey lived close to Tiffany. Apparently, when Vern passed, they wouldn't let his mother on the property. So she was there at the funeral, but she was escorted off before the casket was lowered into the ground. Felt that they have a weird obsession with kids, guns, etc. So that was that story. I'll go to some questions, and then I just have one more story to share, which is kind of a opposite side of that. How people have felt about it. I'm going to mute for just a moment.
So many comments. Why are some people highlighted in the green on here in the comments? Lisa, can you put a comment in about that? I think Lisa's the one who did that. I think that's the membership. Look, the blue ones are the moderators. So I think the green are gifted 5
Lisa,
carry
thank
membership.
you. Thank you so much. So if you just received a membership, please thank Lisa. She's been with my channel for quite a long time. And I'm always appreciative when she's able to make it over here. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Lisa, if I make my name not blue, can I have a green one too? I'm just saying, if you're going to be giving stuff out, it's for free. It's for me. Oh my goodness. It's really great because some of, I'm going to say this. I have watched several, since getting into this the last few weeks, I've watched several YouTube channels. Some I just have to avoid like the plague because my poor mentality and thought process can't handle it. And others are interesting to watch. And I've got to say, there's a lot more statements than questions. And the statements they're basically answers to the questions, and they're spot on. Usually I see a lot of questions that are hard to get through because there's just so many of them. But I think, Carrie, you do such a great job of making sure every last detail is covered. It's kind of this is a self-adjusting audience. This is kind of cool.
Yeah, they're hanging in there great because I get it that not all of it's super exciting and full of drama and sensationalism and all that
well,
stuff.
We don't like drama.
No, I don't like it anyway. So that's why we don't do that over here.
I have enough of that at work. I don't need it in my off time. I'm good.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to I will want to say your name, Pioneer, but it's Pine Needle Protagonist. Thank you. I am a writer, and I'm going to try to talk Carrie into this. See if she'll, see if I can get her to write a book, because I think this would be a very interesting book to write.
Margaret Younger, real quick. Yes. I was, myself and somebody else were out there searching for about 6 to 8 months. Well, I was there for 6 days, and the school is one of the places we're going to go search. But we kind of got a warning, and we heeded that warning and turned around. So, but I did search the other 2 schools. Unity School was one of them that we did search. But yeah. And okay, so then the last thing is just, and I don't want to show any of this. So give me just a moment.
You're good. I see, Jackie, I see you. I've heard some things, and I'm going to say, I think that's funny. And I think I understand why that's funny. I've heard some things. So that's a book and a Lifetime movie. Trill B. Rowell. That's, unfortunately, it probably could be. Ozark spinoff miniseries. I'll tell you what, Lord J, I loved watching Ozark, and I'll tell you, because it's out in the part of the country that it is, and there's horses involved and all of that stuff. It feels like Ozark and Yellowstone had a baby, and this is kind of what's forming. It kind of feels like. So definitely, I get Darlene. Oh my gosh, am I saying that correctly? Darlene Snell vibes, right? Carrie, have you seen that show?
I haven't.
You need to just go Google Darlene Snell. Just look at the photo. And you'll be like, oh, okay. Yes, I do see that.
Margaret, do I think now the 4 denied bond locals may feel more comfortable speaking? In my experience, they've been very comfortable speaking with me all along. So I've been speaking with them for 2 weeks straight. And Tara has too. She's an admin in the Facebook group, so she gets reached out to a lot as well. But being that I think, because I am a small town Okie girl myself, I still live in a tiny town, that it was easy for them to relate to me. It was easy for me to relate to them and what they were going through, and it just created a comfortable situation. And I swore on my own life I would never reveal anybody's name or ever intentionally reveal any kind of relationship where it could be traced back to who said what. I'm just going to say we've had hundreds of people talk to us, and anything that we are sharing with you is because we can back it up with facts. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to show you a screenshot of who said it, but so you can choose to believe us or not. But definitely, we just want the facts out there. That's all. And
Yes.
really, that's the only way you get true justice, because there is the Veronica and Jilian side of all of this. And then there's also justice for an entire community that's kind of been run over and crapped on by just a few bad people. You know what I mean? The community itself is absolutely amazing. But because everybody works together, lives, in the same close area, kids go to school together, it's very hard to speak out about things like this. It's very difficult. So the next one, this is the next story. All right, so word this property. Okay, so this person kind of had limited information, but I can go into that, and I'm hoping that more will reach out to me, because I like to hear both sides of things. But says, I know some people are saying that we're a part of this, and we aren't. It's my understanding that the quote unquote misfits are 4 families. I know some of them on different levels for sure. Those 4 families are the core of the group, or the group. And that is kind of where my understanding's at as well. I think the rest of them are just guilty by association, if that makes sense. And the community is making it a big deal. They started having meetings at their house and then invited other people to come. I think others came every once in a while. We went one time for about a year and a half ago or so. I'm not real sure, not really knowing anything about it. We didn't really think one way or another. We just didn't think it was for us. Plus, it was, kind of a distance to travel. So we never went back. I know 2 out of the 4 families well, and 3 out of the 4 semi-well. But really, we haven't known anyone. I'm going to leave those names out. Before all of this, I would say they were independent, self-sufficient, and neighborly. Same as 98% of everyone here. The things they believed or talked about wasn't anything different than most of the people here from what I knew. They started getting really into this anti-government movement and attended a couple of conferences. Again, we didn't attend any of that. One of the ladies had just told us about it. I know some people outside the 4 families attended some meetings and conferences, but I don't think that's what they would call the misfits, if that makes sense. I've talked to a couple of them, and they are besides themselves and don't want to be associated with this at all. But they are being targeted by our own community. I can relate. We are as well. We are all just so shocked that it's made everyone almost paranoid. We were added to a Facebook group a long time ago, and we thought nothing of it until now, and are now being said we are a part of the quote unquote misfits. I do know they started calling themselves the misfits as kind of a joke, and then it just kind of stuck. We don't even live in the Griggs area. Some of us are generations deep there, though. Didn't talk a lot, but when we did, we would get caught up, if that makes sense. We had nothing against them, just neighbors. I've heard several people say that Cora had changed a lot over the last 6 months. I can't testify to that because I only talk a couple of times in 6 months. We are all completely shocked, but we don't doubt it either because of some of the conversations that we've had. I know that was a lot, and I'm praying that it does not get twisted. I wish I could shine some insight more on the misfits, but again, I just don't know. The only thing I know is who I believe the true misfits are only 4 families, and those families seem to be involved in this horrible tragedy. But the rest of the people that would go to the meetings sometimes or were in that Facebook group just aren't that, and they don't want to be labeled as that. And she talks about, we can talk a lot more later on. People are really blowing some of this out of proportion, and I understand we're all panicked, but it is really starting to affect innocent lives in a very negative way and taking away from the real tragedy of the matter. We also have friends that knew the victims as well. We are all grieving on a high level. I was shocked when people said we were a part of the quote unquote misfits. We don't even live close to Griggs. I'm guilty of knowing them for sure, as all of us do. As you know by now, we are a very small community. I just wish that our community would stop pointing the fingers at each other and start bonding. But we have so much outside speculation, which I totally understand. It's not making it easier. I follow you closely. So far, everything I've seen that you reported seems to be accurate. I'm sure I'll miss one because I'm pretty good at that. Okay. And I respect that. If I did not, I wouldn't be talking to you. Anyways, it's my fear that if this doesn't get cleared up, then it could affect our relationships in our community for generations to come. And this person is not wrong. And that's why we're doing this. That is why we're doing this right now. So I want to thank you for helping try to clear this up. You also made a very good statement earlier about the families. I know the families of those families, some of them very well, and they are devastated and they are getting harassed. They can't even grieve or wrap their head around anything because they're busy defending their innocence. Okay, then the person kind of goes on to they said a little bit more, and then when we were invited to Cora and Cole's house, they did not call themselves Misfits at the time. I don't believe anyway. And at that time, this is like a few years ago, it wasn't anything weird. They showed a video about what sovereign citizens meant, but I think they were just learning about it themselves at the time, except maybe the cooks. They may have introduced it. Again, I'm really not sure, just speculating and whatever I've heard. I'll say that that's the same information I've been given repeatedly. Like I said, it wasn't for us, but we just went on about our business because they mostly just talked as neighbors. And we met the cooks and PG family. But at that time, it was nothing major. I'm not sure if their beliefs grew and turned into this. We have to take it in our own hands kind of thing. I was trying to find the best way to explain it. And here's what I've got. Those four families that they did life together. Those four families did life together, literally life together. When they invited other people, I don't think their radicalism was talked about. I could be completely wrong. That's just the outside looking in. But those families are definitely radicals when it comes to their beliefs, very arrogant, like they are above the law. That's why I think a lot of us say we're shocked and can't believe somebody is capable, but we don't doubt it either because they were so confident in how they believed. I'm just afraid if somebody comes forward that actually went to the meetings, they will get ripped. I've heard of 2 people in fear of their jobs because they went a few times. Apparently Cole, they were running a Facebook group for this ASNs. They were running a Facebook group. And so Cole had invited a bunch of people into the group and was it Cora? No, so Cole had invited a bunch of people into the group. And when they did, these people didn't know why they were invited into it, but they did, they're like, well, we didn't have any reason not to accept the invite. Cole was known to help every kid at the stock show clip their animals, helped anyone in need. And that's what I've heard about Cole. Him and Cora both would give you the shirt off their back. So something went haywire somewhere. Something went very wrong. And then the person goes on to say, we didn't think anything about it. Just like I'm sure anybody that went to those meetings from time to time didn't think anything about it either. It's like that saying, quote unquote, it's all fun and games until someone puts out an eye. Everything seems normal until someone gets murdered. So sad for everyone. And then they just, the last part, I hope that everything that you've gathered to this point, and then talking to a couple other people, that you're getting a good sense of everything. I'd be lying if I said I even understood it. The only thing I really know is that what is called the Misfits is 4 families. They did life together. The cooks seem to be the foundation. Back to the cooks, they're the ones that renounced their citizenship, along with Paul Grice. Everybody else besides these 4 families, from what I can see, from what I know, was innocent by standards. But again, that's the outside looking in. But somehow through the gossip chain, we too got thrown in there. And I think that's so sad. And that's why we had to be very careful with our words. because it absolutely will destroy people. And, you know, what this person, the kind of what I got out of it was that they're like, you know, they didn't feel there was any reason, or they're like, they were like, you know, this is just kind of this a little weird, but not like murdering kind of weird, you know, it wasn't even like that. And so anybody that did attend those meetings, I don't think that they were on the level that these four families are. Now,
No.
I could turn out to be wrong, but I truly think through all the research, all the information that we have gotten, it really is restricted to these four families. There might be other members, you know, of the group, but I just think that the radicalism, the extremism to this extent is Tiffany, Tad, the Cooks, and Paul Grice and his family. So, all right. So that was a lot, but that's about the God's Misfits. And I just hope that maybe some rumors can settle down. Obviously, we can't reach, you know, huge masses. But if those in the chat that have just seen and heard everything, I gave you factual evidence and stuff. If, you know, you guys will try to help correct some of that, because these people are really hurting. They really are. I'm sure that we have all gone to something that after the fact we're like, I wasn't very thrilled with that. I'm not going back. You know what I mean? And that just because you were, or somebody invited you and you joined a Facebook group one day and it turned out being bad, it just doesn't make them all bad too, you know? Just like these people that did these horrific acts have families, but they also have great family members that would never ever dream of doing something like this. So I think that we could also say the same for the American State Nationals, the small group that they are out there in Griggs, Oklahoma. And I am done with all that. So now it's all you, Tara.
It's all me.
It's all you.
I won't be able to share the screen. Oh, bring it on. Do you have the slides that I sent over to you? Because I won't be able to share my screen and talk and see everything. They were in your email. That would be awesome.
Absolutely.
So there is some sort of setting where I can't, I think because in StreamYard, I can't see what's presenting. I don't know if I can see it over. I'm afraid if I go over to the live, then yeah, I'll have to figure it out. This is weird for me. I'll figure it out. It'll be great. Okay. So as soon as Carrie finds the slides. So in the title of this particular live, Wrangler's name was mentioned. And there's been, throughout all of the rhetoric, the conversations, the interactions, the relationships, everything that has been taking place in the background, one person that has zero voice outside of Jilian and Veronica, and that's what, at this point, that's what everybody's here for, right, is to give Veronica and Jilian a voice, because theirs was completely silenced. Somebody has got to stand up for those two. Well, there's others out there that don't have a voice, not because it's been silenced, they're just silenced for now. And I don't know how long that's going to be. But Wrangler has been brought up in multiple conversations at multiple levels for multiple different reasons. And so we've seen the rhetoric online, we've heard some of the other creators out there, and just felt maybe it's time to kind of give him a story, kind of start building a foundational narrative of what we know to be truth, and then kind of bring in some conversation for the perspectives that have been put out there. Because I've heard everything from he's a reckless addict to a loving father. And so we're going to break down some of the facts and then navigate through some of the perspectives. So the first thing we know about Wrangler is that he's a son. He is the son to Tiffany Adams, who's been arrested for Jilian and Veronica's murder, along with 3 others. And then Jason Rickman, which is also, his name's been thrown around out there multiple times. He's a father, obviously. He shares 2 children with Veronica, and he's got 1 on the way with his current wife. And so he's away. The reason that he doesn't have a voice is because he is in court-ordered rehab. Now this gives him an alibi for the events of March 30th, 2024. We have also been able to definitively prove he's been arrested many times. Some charges have been dismissed, and then some he has seen through. So those are the facts. That's what we absolutely do know. Those are things that we can absolutely back up. We can evidence those. What about the perspectives out there? Because as I started in on this, and I think Carrie, we kind of morphed into the same understanding of Wrangler. Initially, we were painted a very poor picture of Wrangler.
Oh, yes.
And the more we talked with others, and this is not just family, we're talking people that went to high school with
Friends,
him, people
best
that worked with
friends.
him.
Yes.
Yes, he has a whole circle of individuals that know him in varying aspects of him. And so I don't know how many of you have a work persona and then your home persona, and you add addiction to that, you add certain family issues to that, and the personas multiply. And so some of the perspectives that we've received is I actually did not do that right. Ignore that second bullet. That second bullet's not correct. I didn't correct that. I should have checked that. My bad. But the first one is the unhealthy relationship with the mother. Now, originally, there had been talk about Wrangler's involvement, but it was convenient. He had an alibi for the events of March 30th. And as we got to talking with more and more folks, it turns out, despite all the custody documents that we read the other night, and we even went into some of the Wrangler was trying to work with Veronica, it all stems from we have heard multiple individuals state Tiffany and Wrangler did not have a good relationship. It was tumultuous, it was dangerous, it was toxic. We've all seen, I hope we've all seen, if not, it is on the Facebook group page. There is a court documentation of Tiffany threatening Wrangler to shoot him in the head if he didn't do exactly what she told him to do. Now, I'm a mother of 3 kids myself, and I can't imagine my children doing something or me wanting them to do something to the point where I would use that kind of violence against them. Now, that's just me. I feel like that's a pretty common theme amongst people, but that doesn't speak warm fuzzies of a relationship between a mother and son. So there's a lot of rhetoric out there about their relationship. As far as relationship with his father, I've really not heard anything. Nothing bad. I've heard there's rumors about some of the drug use is generational between his dad and himself and whatnot. I don't know. So far, I've not really seen anybody send me anything or reveal anything to me that indicates that Jason and Wrangler are bonded through any kind of addiction. But I have seen a lot of rhetoric that states some of Wrangler's addiction is trying to deal with the relationships around him, is kind of how I'll put it. As far as being a father, yeah, I think, Carrie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we got the impression he was fighting Veronica tooth and nail for those kids. He wanted them. That's the impression we got. That's where some of these court documents led on to until we started diving really deep and really talking with folks. And we actually had some folks that were just plain frustrated with what they saw on the Facebook group page and saying, you don't know him. Yes, he can be nasty when he is drunk or high. He can be downright just horrible. But when he's not influenced,
He's a good dad, good friend.
Yes.
Like yeah. Which is typical of a lot of addicts, really. But.
Yes. Yeah. And so that is, and I have addicts in my family, and I can absolutely attest to that. And I think there's a lot of people who can't. Does that justify any of the negative things that Wrangler has done? Because I'm sure there are negative things he's done. Addicts are not innocent people necessarily because bad decisions are made under the influence. No, that doesn't justify anything, but explains things. And there is a difference between explaining something and justifying it. And so I've heard some terrible, awful things that Wrangler may have done while under the influence or while working towards influence. If he was, there's been talk about anger management issues, not be able to control himself and that nature. So I don't know if those were alcohol or in drug induced or what those were, but ultimately, when it came down to it, more times than not, the overwhelming thing was he was trying to work with Veronica. He wanted to share the custody. He wanted to co-parent. He wanted to cooperate with her. And it sounds like the driving force of the custody issue was Tiffany. So again, these are perspectives. These are not truths. These are not things that we can put out there, evidence through court docs or anything like that. These are the individuals out there who feel like Wrangler needs to be heard because he can't be heard right now due to being in rehab, which leads into the history of drug and alcohol abuse. I don't know how long it's been going on. I could not get a definitive answer on that. Carrie, I don't know if you've gotten anything specific as to how
Yes.
long? Okay,
Since,
good.
I believe since about his senior year of high school is when things kind of started to decline. He did get clean there for a while over this past year. Unfortunately, I think maybe around December, somewhere around there, when he started getting some other charges,
Hmm.
then he declined again and fell back into his old habits.
Yeah. So Wrangler is in his late 20s. Is that right? Mid to late 20s? So we're
Yes.
talking 7 to 10 years of trying to deal with situations through drug and alcohol. So this is not something he needed the rehab clearly, or he wouldn't be there. So some of the other things when we were introduced to this case, when we started looking into it, there was a lot of talk of Wrangler knew. Wrangler was planning it. He was helping his mom. The alibi for the rehab was just a just a great happenstance. And quite honestly, the further we dig, the less we believe that he had any knowledge of it. It's just hard to wrap our heads around that he would be involved because he was trying to work with Veronica. He was trying to get on the straight and narrow path. I think he had tried on his own to quit a few times his addiction. He tried to manage it on his own in situations, his relationships, familial relationships just impacted him too much. And they were just heavy burdens. So there's not a lot to go on in terms of planning. Now, I say that because when you start getting into these kind of things, when you start looking into deep diving things, you hear somebody say something, you kind of like, okay, I'll hold on to that. I'll try to look into that. And then somebody else says it and somebody else says it. And that narrative starts to build and you really start looking at it. You can start verifying it through different links and research and whatnot. And we just can't find anybody that would say, yeah, Wrangler would totally hop on board with his mother, when there's been actual talk of Wrangler been threatened by his mother on multiple occasions. She was trying to get custody of his two kids from him. And so we're having a really hard time buying into the whole he knew what was going to happen March 30th. We just can't find anything to back that up, other than a lot of negative experiences with him. As far as the law is concerned, yes, he's been arrested many times. Some of those charges have been dismissed. Now, it turns out it looks like some of those arrests may involve his mother's influence. Can't back that up, but that's been the whisper mill quite a bit. And so, and it's come from all over. It's between Cimarron and Texas counties both. People are saying, yeah, she had a hand in some of what he's been into legally. And she had a hand in getting him out of some of what he's been into legally. And she would be Tiffany. I can't get anybody else to say anything about Tad or anybody else he was connected with. It seems like Tiffany was it seemed like she was in charge of his ability to stay in or out of out of jail. Ultimately, the overwhelming thing, the thing that we get more than anything else, is that Wrangler's not a criminal. He's not a bad guy. He's not out there trying to thieve and lie and steal. His addictions do tend to carry him, but ultimately he's a very loving individual, very caring towards his children. I've been through his TikTok. God forbid I had to download TikTok to do this. Oh, but I've been through his TikTok, through his through his Facebook. I've tried researching him quite a bit. And I'll tell you, I do a lot of people analysis. I look at people and I understand people to a different level. And I've shared some of my analysis with some of the folks out there in the panhandle. And it looks like, Wrangler's a tortured soul. That doesn't justify him making bad decisions. Can explain them. There's a lot of tortured souls out there that make different choices, and sometimes it's just hard to take the right path. And so that's the other overwhelming thing. He's a wonderful individual. He's not a criminal. He's acting out. He's trying to manage, and he'll let a lot of his emotions drive him. And again, I've got family members that are addicts, and their emotions drive them. So I see that theme there. And so this wasn't trying to come out and speak on Wrangler's behalf. We're trying to give him a new light for others to kind of think about where he's coming from. His mother's been arrested for killing the mother of his children. That's something like that cuts deep with me. That's hard I cannot. And then some of the things we've seen, her threatening to shoot him in the head, court documents. His mother has threatened a judge who had to have protective custody. In the affidavit, she mentions she knew how a judge got to work. and would take care of him, or, we'll drop Veronica at the meat site, or, those things that came literally from the affidavits. You gotta have to wonder, this can't be Tiffany's first rodeo in terms of threatening, being mean, unreasonable. And you gotta kind of wonder, what did Wrangler grow up with? So I'm not gonna put Wrangler in the he's guilty box. I'm gonna put him in the that man has got a lot to deal with box. A lot to
Yes.
deal with.
And now he's got even more to deal with thanks to Mommy Dearest again. And like Tara just said, we're not saying he's not, he definitely has a past, and we don't agree with things he's done whatsoever. But there is another side, from friends and family that also needs to be told too. And he wasn't always this guy that is being portrayed.
So there's a message from Tessie on there. Will you highlight that for me? I want to get into that. Is important to me. So on the screen, you're going to see, Tess, I'm glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that, because that's important to me. That's going to hit home with me. Tess said, wasn't he charged with domestic violence? I believe that he was. But let's talk about that for just a second. I was a victim of domestic violence. That domestic violence, and I kid you not, folks, when you have these kind of things come out there, they are not as black and white as they seem. And so that's why this Wrangler story was very intriguing to me, because of my experience. I was not the aggressor. I was the one that they wanted to press charges. There was a law enforcement angle to it. I'm not going to get into a whole lot of details, but ultimately it was just something simple that was thrown at me. Now, the fact that this person did put their hands on me is not what got this person arrested. It was the fact that this person threw something small, insignificant. You wouldn't think it'd cause a whole lot of damage, because it probably would not. It had liquid in it. It was a cup. And that individual was arrested for domestic violence. And so I live in the state of Kansas. And so when somebody calls on a DV charge, and I'm not the one who called, but somebody has to go to jail by Kansas state law, no matter what it is. Somebody is going to jail. And that person did go to jail that night for throwing a cup at me. So when we see this domestic violence stuff, and we know that, yeah, he's got a past, but his past does not include, I don't know if he's got other DV charges. I didn't see any, but he's not, in all of the perspectives that I gathered from others, violence is not the answer for his problems. Drugs and alcohol are. He doesn't do good things when he's on drugs and alcohol. He's been known to get violent when he has been drinking, because that's like the trigger for it. But before we start digging down into the hole of he's evil because he was arrested for domestic violence, we need to go look at the law to understand that it could be something simple. It could be something grave. It could be something severe. So this is not to say that domestic violence is okay. This is to say there's more to the story. We have to keep that in mind. So that's why when I saw that those things have been coming up on the Facebook group, I wanted to go look it up to see, is he the kind that really does abuse others, or what? So I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's super important to point out.
And Oksana had a question. So are we discrediting Grandma Deb's story that was included in the PCA? No, I'm not. I don't know.
The story in the PCA
where he called her in February.
Oh, okay.
And then in the PCA, he says that he never did make that phone call. So, I mean, I don't know if that was done or not.
I'd want to, so you kind of need some more, need more information, right? When things come out that simple, they're rarely that simple.
Right.
And so I would like I'd like to know what that conversation was. And so it's, I know Tess, his court documents tell me all I need to know about him. And I'm not going to rob you of that at all. I'm just getting in so deep and researching everybody and learning about the folks. I don't know. I'm always questioning everything that comes my way now. I'm always wondering, especially if it leads back to Tiffany at this point.
Right.
She's been convicted, but anything that leads back to her, I'm like, ooh, okay. So I have questions. I'm always very open to learning more.
Definitely. I don't want to throw you off track. Canon Art said his Veronica's family confirmed that he was trying to work with her. I'd be interested in their take on that. They haven't confirmed to us anything, but the court documents, both sides, both him and Veronica, both have said repeatedly throughout the years they were trying to work together, even when I think it was one of the two had gotten full custody, and the other was just supposed to get the small visitations. The two of them together outside of the court order did joint custody, and they alternated weeks, 1 week on, 1 week off. So they had always, my understanding is that they'd always tried to work together.
So, geez, I'm not making a victim of Wrangler. That's what I'm trying to get at. There's a comment there from Jesus says, RW is not a good man, in my opinion, and making him a victim isn't cool. This isn't about making him a victim. I'm always curious into the psychology of things, which is why we deep dive so much.
Me too.
There's always a reason why people do the things that they do. The addicts in my family aren't victims. They've also made really bad decisions. I know why their addictions. I know where their addictions come from because I was there. I watched the source as it took place. I don't know Wranglers. I don't believe that addiction is just something you wake up and do one day. I don't think he's innocent at all. That's why we're trying to make very clear this is not about him being innocent or guilty.
Right.
But everybody's got a voice in this whole thing. And as the voices come through for us through our messages, we try to follow those as much as we can, especially and without saying anything to who they are, if they want to be protected. I can't imagine if Wrangler is a great guy, if he's never done a thing wrong in his life and all this is taking place and he can't get out to say anything, I myself would feel bad for not trying to give him at least a space, a foundation to work off of. If he comes out and he's like, yeah, I totally knew and y'all can't get to me, so I'm a sovereign citizen. Like if he goes that route, right. Okay. Like, yeah. I don't know what he's going to come out saying. There's been so much said about him and honestly, it's unreasonable to not try to put out there a possibility venue for thinking. It's a great,
and we really try hard to be fair as well. So by being fair, there's usually two sides to the story. Brave little Munchkin, grandma, she was very upset about how that was worded with her name in it. She did feel like it was kind of twisted, and I did tell her, I'd be calling the DA and seeing if you can't get some kind of change or a statement or something, anything. I don't know. She did give them a call, but she was very upset by that because it did make it appear like she had prior knowledge that this was going to happen, and that's not the case.
Correct.
They all knew that there was a threat. They all knew there was a threat. They kept reporting the threats. So you know what I'm saying? Hopefully that makes sense.
So Estella Cox says it doesn't justify any of the horrible things he's done. Agreed. Again, justification and explanation are two different things. We don't know either, but putting out there some opportunity to promote thinking. I like to promote people to think beyond the box. And quite honestly, sometimes I can say something that's going to tick somebody else off. They're going to come correct me. And that's what I'm hoping for. Right. I'm hoping that we get some more insight. That's how we learn. We say things and somebody says, just like that arrest of that gal last week, it was unrelated to everything that's gone on. It just happened to be bad timing. And Kyson Rich was another one. There was 2 arrests that took place in the whole timeline. And everybody wanted to jump on the whole they are involved bus because it looks bad. And as it turned out, it is zero relatability. It is not at all. Neither of those 2 arrests are involved whatsoever. If I could remember the young lady's name, I don't recall. I know Kyson Rich. I keep messing up his name.
Yes, Kyson Rich.
But this isn't about justification or explanation. It's about opening up a dialogue and just throwing out some, I like to call them mental grenades, because it always stirs something up. There's always something that I don't think of. And I like to see what else is out there that can be incorporated into the theories. Because I still have some theories. My original theory was pretty close. And so I want to keep seeing how all the other theories I have work.
For those saying to look his court records, trust me, we have all of his court records. We have every single one of them. We've seen them. So there's nothing We've already learned all of that craziness
Oh,
that Tara's talking about.
yes. Canon art, at the end of the day, TA got what she wanted. Veronica's gone. If W gets his life together, he will get those kids, and there's nothing there is so much concerning about that. There's a
Yes,
lot going
agreed.
on there. That's the 6 months of rehab. I do question, how does the state operate with a custody case? Like, how do you navigate this?
Well, we've seen many, many cases go badly after things like this. So, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
in my opinion, it would not be in the best interest for, he would need to have supervised visitation and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my opinion. And I wouldn't think the state would just, I wouldn't think so. But
Mm-hmm.
I know I have covered multiple cases where this same almost exact situation has occurred. One of the parents, that had been an addict, had gone to jail, gone out, blah, blah, blah. They get the custody. And then things turn out horribly, horribly wrong. So,
Yeah. So that's what do we else we have? Okay, let me touch on that. I think the point is being raised by someone like TA can be traumatic and cost someone great demons. Estelle, I could not agree with you more. I was not raised by a very loving mother, and if I have family on the line, that is my opinion, that's my experience. If you don't agree, I'm totally cool with that. I do not have a relationship with my mother. We just never could click. A lot of experiences that are not very fun. And so I can understand why people turn to different coping mechanisms like addiction and things of that nature just to try and survive, let alone thrive. You can't really get to thriving. So it can be very traumatic. Again, that doesn't justify bad behavior. It explains it to a certain point, because at some point in time, you have to make the decision, do I go with my rearing or do I go with what I think I should do? And so it's a very slippery slope with a blurry line.
yes.
Not at all, Estella. Totally agree with you. If the cooks lied about the whereabouts of the children, there was a reason. Was it because did they lie? Did I miss that one? There was the cooks lied about the whereabouts of the children? Did I miss
No, I don't
something?
think so. I mean, I'm not sure when officers went there that day. Did they say, yes, here they are? I'm not sure how any of that went down.
Trilby Rao, you can connect with me anytime on Facebook then. I'll have this. So Carrie has said several times that I do my own podcast. Maybe I need to go focus on that for a little bit and share my experiences.
Yes, she definitely needs to have a
Yeah.
podcast.
No, thank you.
No, I don't
We're
think
supposed
it's
to feel
necessary.
no,
No.
we don't need to feel sorry for him. No, just because we can explain somebody's actions does not mean you feel sorry for them. I'm a big believer of I
Or
may
even
accept what you
justify
do.
them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. I may be able to accept what you do. That does not mean I support you. I may be able to understand what you've done. Does not mean I support it. I'm a reasonable thinker. I can say, yeah, I get that, but I'm not following suit.
Yeah. Courtney, yeah, he knew that his mom was threatening Veronica, absolutely. And he, tried with Veronica. There's a time where he went to pick up his kids and his mom refused him his own children. And this is while he had full custody. He tries to get a sheriff to go over there with him. Grandma calls sheriff, and what do you know? Sheriff says, sorry, they're in a better place, even though he had full custody papers. So they tried. I mean, there's multiple times Veronica reached out. He tried the high priced attorney. That was grandma. That was Tiffany Adams that was paying for that. And I don't believe that she ever wanted Wrangler to have custody. I think she wanted the custody all along. She was unhappy with Wrangler and she stopped paying his attorney bill.
Oh,
I'm
what
so
else we got
sorry,
there?
man. So he's supposed to get out in 6 months. My understanding is today or tomorrow he's allowed to start having phone calls.
Okay. Okay. And how do you approach that with your first phone call
Right.
out? What
Oh,
do
I don't
you
know.
do?
Who do
And
you
then how do you,
call? What are you going to do? What are you going to say?
yeah.
Yeah, it would be horrible. Yeah, Sophie and I, well, my understanding, it was dismissed because it didn't quite go down like that, as like it's said, but it was dismissed.
Let's see what else we got.
Tessie, nobody's saying he's not a criminal. He's absolutely a criminal, 100%. I mean, he's done a lot of really bad
Well,
things.
I think she's referring back to that on the slide that was out there. He's not a criminal. He's not a criminal by nature. He's not out
Oh,
there
gotcha.
trying to do bad stuff. He just makes bad decisions in the moment and gets caught for it right there and then. And so, he's not out there. He's not a career criminal. He's not out there trying to break the law. He's just one of those guys that I have a family member like this. They just, when they get upset, they just lose control, and that losing of control includes breaking the law. Does it make him I don't see him as a criminal. He's just stupid when it comes down to it. That's the best way I can put it for that individual, but for my family member.
Yeah, and now I haven't, gone to look at the dates on the court documents or anything like that to actually back this up. But my understanding of that whole assault on his wife was basically he had found out that his mom had fired his attorney, and he got drunk.
Oh.
And when he got drunk, the wife's mom tried to take the keys from him. He was drunk and acting stupid, like many times drunks do, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And he did kind of push her, and the wife was also right there. She also was pushed. Nobody was hurt. They were just trying to keep him from taking the keys and leaving. But that was what brought it up about. And I'm not saying that's right what he did, but so it still goes back to Tiffany. It still goes back to Tiffany if that's the case.
When again, a push, somebody throwing a cup at you, an actual hit to the face, those all fall under the same category.
Yeah.
And there's no
break somebody's
there's no
nose
level.
or
Right.
Break somebody's nose or throw a cup of tea at them. I mean, grab something out of somebody's hands. All of that can be considered assault. So
yes. Oh no, Jamie Lee. Married to an alcoholic for 12 years, finally left, better now, being through things in your own life. You have a better understanding without judgment.
Yeah.
Bingo, Jamie Lee. Bingo. Mm-hmm. That's why I have that's why I take in the perspectives that I do. Because I've also been on the side, and it was family oriented, where whoever got to one of my parents with the story first won. My story was never considered, so I lost my voice growing up, and I had to go find it again. And so I'm not saying I was innocent growing up. I don't think any of us are, but we just need to try to kind of think outside the box. And I think this case through and through has taught us you got to think outside the box.
You really do. I mean, look at all the people that are in shock over these kind of things that happen.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, these are, they were like my friends. They helped me out. If I needed this,
Mm-hmm.
they'd come up with this for me. I mean, we have friends like that in my small town. I can't imagine if we found out that one of them had participated in something like this, like how the emotions that you would go through is nothing compared to the emotions of the victims' families, but it still affects them no matter what.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely does.
Sunshine, we discussed that. I don't know if that's he said, she said. Grandma said that was kind of twisted. The wording of it wasn't exactly how it was, and he denied that. So it's almost like they're both saying that didn't really happen that way, that it was put in the probable cause, but we don't have a way of knowing that.
Jump down to Jennifer. Jennifer, I hope I say your name correctly. Jennifer Libby. I want to say Libby, but there's only one B in there. In her comment, she says, thought you read that they went to Cook's house to find kids. Cooks lied. They were there. I think the affidavit stated that Tiffany said she took the children to the Cooks on Friday night, that she would pick them up to be to meet their mother in the morning at a 10 o'clock arrangement. But she ended up, after she supposedly called, well, she did call, that is in the affidavit. There was a call at 9 o'clock, and Veronica's like, something came up, not going to make it, and Tiffany left the kids with the cooks until noon.
Yeah.
So that's what I remember from the affidavit. If we read something wrong, let us know, because that would be good to clear up for sure.
Yeah, I have it
Now, I
right
know
in front of me, but
there was Jamie Beasley, where he has the property where the bodies were found, where the skid steer was, and there was a conversation the affidavit mentioned that said that Tad, I keep calling him Tad went back to Jamie on Sunday and said, "Hey, some people are looking at me about those missing women. It looks really bad. You have skid steer marks on your property." And Jamie basically responded with, "Don't worry, I'll say you did some tree work," or something along that effect. That's where I saw the lie coming into play at. But if you can find it, show us. It looks like it's on screen now. Is that what you got there, Carrie?
yeah. I
Okay.
had the that was about the calls and picking up the children before noon.
Mm-hmm.
What was the other one we wanted?
The lie. The only lie that I specifically remember, of course, it's going to stick out, was towards the bottom of the affidavit. I think it's a conversation between Cullum and Beasley about about the skid steer being out there, or at least the marks being out there, but no actual skid steer.
Yeah, it's right here. So,
Estella, hold on just a second. Estella, I can say from dating Wrangler, when we were very young, TA always had a full control over him. They fought often over it. Everyone was intimidated by her.
That's what I've been told by friends of his, and I'm talking friends since kindergarten, kind of friends. Those are the people that we've been talking to. So that's exactly what we've heard too, Estella. And that's sad.
Wrangler, yes, traumatized people can traumatize other people. There are folks such as myself who make different choices. So it's not a blanket statement, but you do have value there in your statement for sure. Carrie, read that. You have been called to read.
Oh, I'm behind. Way behind, apparently. Law enforcement had went to visit Wrangler at rehab. That's correct. So let me catch up. It says, Carrie, read that. Read what? Oh, what's on the screen?
I think so.
Oh, goodness. Beasley advised that the dirt work was done with the skid steer by Cullum on March 29th. That was the night before, and possibly finished on March 30th in the morning hours. Beasley knew that Cullum left his skid steer on his property the night before. And when he awoke on March 30th at approximately 1200 hours, the skid steer was gone. Cullum rents the pasture property owned by Beasley for cattle grazing and has access to it at any time. On March 28th or 29th, Cullum asked Beasley if he could cut a tree down, remove a stump, bury some concrete, do dirt work where the concrete pile was and below the dam. Adams was with Cullum at Beasley's property when that conversation was had. In a contact with Cullum, your affiant learned from Cullum that Adams is a significant other. Beasley agreed to allow Cullum to do the work. Cullum brought up the idea of doing the work to Beasley. On Sunday morning, Cullum was at Beasley's house and told Beasley that people were looking for him or looking at him for the disappearance of Butler and Kelley. Cullum told Beasley that he didn't want the police or people to cause problems for Beasley, and said that all the skid steer tracks on his property without a skid steer looked bad. Beasley said that if anyone asked, he would tell them that Cullum had done tree and dirt work for him.
Okay, meme of three she clarified rather. Carrie, read the text sent to her earlier that said about the cooks lying about the kids being there. So it was a text that you read apparently.
Oh, it would be a lot of work to go back and find it right now.
Meme three, I'm not gonna dispute what you heard. I've been watching comments and trying to moderate at the same time. So if you heard it, I'm gonna lean into you on that one.
Saying?
It was the thing about the cooks line was from one of the texts.
Oh,
So,
okay.
and
Well,
then, but it seems like there's some confusion there too now. So
hmm
we'll go back through the text to see, and then we can clarify in the next live. So
yeah,
we'll cover it. We'll totally cover it. We're not gonna, like I said, we're not, and we're, to be very, very clear, we're not here to convince anybody of anything. We're trying, as we get information and we get it to a point where we can put it out there without putting anybody else in any kind of harm's way or danger, or without making them feel violated. We will. That's what these lives are about. We have no interest in convincing anybody. I feel like the state of Oklahoma will be convinced soon enough as to what is going on and what needs to be done. Oh, goodness. Okay. I'm getting some other messages at the same time. Heard that Veronica's dad has the two kids, and I also heard they're in protective custody with child services. What do we know? Do we know what's true? My understanding is protective custody. Carrie, is
yes,
that your okay? That's my understanding. I know there's a strong hope for Veronica's dad.
right.
I don't know him, but they're in protective custody. It's my understanding. So that's just I when I get something like that, that's a very specific piece of information I'm not going after, because that means contacting some sort of protective service
Right.
that's probably
Yeah.
not in my repertoire of I don't probably know how to speak to those individuals. So um but I know that there's been no, if I truly and firmly believe if there was some danger of the children being out there still not in protective custody, that we would know about it. I really do. Okay, see. I feel like Randa says, I feel like mom fed his addiction to get him out the way. Randa, I'll tell you what, that kind of plays into my theory of things. Given my experiences, what I know, what I'm learning, it's a theory that is sitting there on the sideline, waiting to be waiting to be used. But I wouldn't doubt it. Is this still live? It is. It should be. Are we live, Carrie? Are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
I was
I
looking
got a
through
little
those
worried.
messages to try to find maybe what they were talking about.
Oh, let's
I know I
see.
talked about these people being told the story of how they were keeping the kids from both parents and hiding them at the house by Tad and Tiffany's, which was cooks. I'm not sure if that was what that question was about. That's all. I'm just trying to find that. So what it
Okay.
would be.
Let's see. Chat is live and active. You guys are, this is awesome. You guys are this engaging and this invested. This is, it's great to go through the comments and then try to figure out which ones haven't been answered, because we've got great answers to some great questions. Try to go backwards. There's, yeah, family were at the hearing yesterday. There was a lot of family at the hearing yesterday. Yep.
Okay, I think I found what that person was talking about. Now, like I can't verify every single detail of this. I can just say that we've been given enough of the same information enough times that we can believe at least the majority. But I believe what that person was referring to is when this individual said, "I know the day the police went to Cook's to see if the kids were there. They were told they weren't there when in fact they were." That's probably
Okay.
what that was about.
Okay, then.
That wasn't
Meme
me. I
agreeing
didn't
that,
say that. That's
yeah,
was
no, and
relayed
I
to
think
me.
Meme said it was a text that you had read, so they were
Yeah.
pushing towards that, which is good. I'm glad you found it. Um, okay, so I will, this has not been brought up very often, so I will touch on it because that's all I can do is touch on it. Any mention of what the relationship was or is like between Wrangler's siblings and their mom? Tessie, I don't know. There's been so much focus on Wrangler and Tiffany and the gang that I don't know. I've heard that Canyon, I think is her other son, lives close by. I
Mhm.
can't, I'm not sure where the daughter lives. There's not been a whole lot of, when you talk to folks, they don't bring them up. And so that kind of gives you some understanding of, okay, it's probably not something that's not a rabbit hole that'll be helpful just yet. And so the rabbit holes we tend to go get lost in are because there's been a lot of push towards the rabbit hole. So at this point in time, I don't know a whole lot about his siblings. I just I can't imagine that it's too much different. I don't know. That would be great for if there's some folks out there who would be willing to add into that. We'd love to listen. We don't need to share anything necessarily, but it would help to develop the pattern of behavior that Tiffany exerted, which has been, I got to tell you, the pattern of behavior from Tiffany is overwhelming. For every 100 folks that do have everything negative to say, there's one that has something positive. That's how it's been going for me, Carrie. I don't know about you, but it's hard to find somebody who wants to give her a hug without getting stabbed in the back. I'll put it like that.
Yeah, for real. Yes. And I can add just a tad bit to Wrangler's siblings, at least Canyon. I don't know if him and Canyon get along. If somebody was in the chat earlier, a couple people that know them, maybe they can answer that. But I do know Wrangler, when I was out there, so the Wednesday following when this occurred, so it occurred on Saturday, the following Wednesday, we were told by an individual that saw Wrangler's brother personally, and Veronica's little girl was in the back of the truck, just like grinning and waving and stuff. So I would say he's got some sort of relationship with his mom. She probably, I believe he still lives at home. And my guess is that what she does to Wrangler, she probably does the same to him. I don't think she just picked Wrangler out, for no reason. I think that's she's just
well,
crazy.
And I'll actually build on to that a little bit because I would agree with that. But at the same time, I've got a handful of siblings. And despite my experiences with my mother, my siblings are like, that's just her. We're just going to work around it. So while they may have been treated the same way, they may not understand. Like maybe Wrangler fought her so hard because that's been a lot of the rhetoric is their constant fight, and then we've had several comments to that effect. It would not surprise me if there was a variance between the siblings because of if Tiffany being the controller that we have heard multiple times that she is. It would not surprise me to hear she was controlling two of the three siblings. That's kind of how I view my dynamic. Again, if my siblings are on the chat or in the group and they're not speaking up, remember that's just my experience. It's my perspective. I'm not expecting you to agree with that. And then that's what causes the variance of understanding and the wedge between siblings in stuff like this.
Yeah, even my children all have different, views on how it was for them growing up. You know what I mean? Like, so Estella said the daughter and other son are sober and good people. That's exactly what I've heard as well. That's exactly what I've heard. Well, Jamie, he'll have to go to court and they'll have to get a DNA test done. That's about all I can say about that because I'm not about to touch all that mess.
Oh my!
So
no, I'm not touching that either.
Basically, they don't believe that his current wife is pregnant with his child. He does have a girlfriend. He's in rehab. Him and his wife, they have not been together for some time. So yeah, so that's where all that is. But I don't even want to touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Nope, I don't.
Whatever.
I'll tell you what I will touch with a 10-foot pole is I just saw it a second ago, and who said it? Let me go back a second. Just because I have learned to ask questions before presuming I understand the definition. Is it Jean or Jeannie McGinnis? I'm not sure how to say your name, so I'm just going to put that out there. Define Jezebel for me. I know what it means in the Wichita area for specific reasons, but if you will, and then there's biblical, will you define that for me before? Because I'm just kind of curious. I've seen some of the other texts or some of their chats that kind of align with that. I just want to be sure I know what that means before I dive into that one. And then Belladonna said, man without a voice gives him a victim platform. He will totally play when he gets out and gets those kids back. He's very much his mother's son. Okay, so that's interesting because that's one of the first times I've heard that. Right. So the man without a voice is not, and maybe I should have worded that differently. I will keep that in mind going forward. I was trying to figure out a way to
It's just that
present.
right now he can't
Yeah,
defend himself. Right now he
right.
cannot defend himself. I have no
Or
doubt
just
that he
speak.
probably will
Yeah.
soon, as soon as he's able to.
Oh
It's
boy.
just kind of a different side and a deeper why. What's the why
Yeah.
behind it? How did it get to this point? I think that's at least for Tara and um, I really like digging in on the psychology of
Oh
things like
yeah.
this. So
I'm a
that
human
part's
engineer, so
there you
it's
go.
yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
natural that's where our minds would go, but it's definitely not giving him a victim platform, and he's gonna have to do a whole lot before he'd ever get the kids back. So
Well, you can't. So imagine the damage. If he is a good guy, let's go with that for a second. How much damage control do you have to do to try to come back from that? Like he's got to win public opinion back because it's pretty sour right now. And so again, not trying to defend him, trying to put out what we know definitively about him versus all the things we've heard. And we've
right.
heard more about him than we've heard true about him. And we wanted to address that. We've had a couple of questions regarding that in private messages, and so we thought that this would be a great opportunity to bring that forth and get some questions out there too, because we don't know everything. You guys probably know better than us for sure.
Right. Definitely. Mama said I talked to Heath Kelly's sister yesterday. She said he could use prayers. It's been a nightmare. I bet it has
Oh,
been.
absolutely.
Absolutely. But so,
Thank you for that. I'm glad that's a good reminder. This is about
mhm,
Jillian and Veronica. Ultimately, this is not to take from them.
yeah.
We wouldn't even know who Wrangler was if not for the choices of four individuals and the extreme sacrifice. That's what I'm going to call it.
Mhm.
These two had no idea what they were stepping into when they left from Hugoton that morning. So,
No, not at all.
but it's,
Um, Tiffany's Rickman, Wrangler and Canyon's dad, he's there close by.
yep, there are a lot of nuances with this. A lot. I think that's what grabs my attention with it.
Definitely.
Literally, man is in rehab with DV charges, and she's out here getting her house set up for them. I
Yes,
don't.
talking about the new girlfriend, and that's like I said
The
earlier,
new girl. Oh,
we're just staying
okay.
away from all of that.
Oh,
We
I
only
don't.
know what we know based on like conversations with people that have known him his whole life. Some family, lots and lots of friends, people he grew up with, things like that. Right along with all the court documents, and we've seen
Mhm.
it all. So, and
Yeah,
TA is the kind of mother who knows exactly how to find the weak spots of her children and use them to her advantage. She's
based
one
on what
woman I
I've
do not
heard.
like. I tell you that.
Yeah, yeah. The things I've heard, yeah, absolutely. Belladonna, they are telling us things. They're telling us all what they have been told about Ranger by those who know him well. They are people with hearts, trying to help explain and give us. Absolutely, well said, Pee Wee. More, but
Yeah,
yes, exactly. That's what we're trying to do. We don't. Hopefully, we'll get to talk to Wrangler 101. I doubt he's going to be into that, but we'd love to hear his side of the story.
absolutely. And there, like,
If
there's always, three sides to the story, and everybody's heard the horrible side of him, and so we just want to be able to give you the fairness of it. That yeah, he's got some pretty awful charges. He's done some pretty awful things.
Mhm.
But on top of that, he has also had to deal with fighting a mother, and I'm talking badly. Uh, the threats it weren't just to Veronica, and I do have proof
Mhm.
of that. So, no, I'm not going to share those texts with you guys, but I do have proof. And I'll just say that. So, you believe it or not, but Tiffany was awful to Wrangler as well. It was not
Mhm.
just Veronica.
So go ahead and I'll address this because this is sensitive, and I've said it several times in the Facebook group. Stacy Rupp mentions, can we talk about the charges against VB, 18-year-old brother's charges against him? No, we absolutely cannot. And I know I say that very firmly and strictly and probably very offensively, but I am going to be firm on this one because everything I have heard regarding anything about those it's all minors all the way around. I can't find anybody that says anything otherwise. And so that's why we will not discuss that. We don't have access to those documents. We don't have access to that information. We don't have access to those details. And while the idea can be inserted into the theory of the events of March 30th that led to the deaths of Jilian and Veronica, the details therein don't apply. They absolutely do not. And so I'm going to be very strict on that one. And I'll continue to be strict in the Facebook group and with the mods. And I know Carrie sees that very similarly, if not identically.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The TA lawyer was on today and talked about them. If that's what he wants to do, we don't control him. That's all. He's on his own. This is how we are running this is how we are running this whole side of communication. We're trying to stay focused. And if we're going to have emotions, let's put them in the right spots. I know that is emotional. I was molested as a child. I understand the situation deep and intimately. But again, the details don't matter that way.
Nope, they don't. And if that really did happen, then, I hope that the kids receive all the help in the world that they need for that. But it also, and I don't want to take away from it if it did. It could also be he said, she said. We got to remember It was a nasty, years-long court battle. So, yeah, I just prefer to not really talk about that. They're going to have to hear enough one day. They're going to get to the age where they're going to start going online. They're going to be pulling up this stuff, and they don't need to read that kind of thing about them. If it happened, they already know it happened. They aren't going to want the rest of the world talking about it.
Yep. Agreed.
Somebody says it was released today that they weren't shot. Have you seen anything about anything being released?
I've not. All I've seen is several news media outlets talking about Tiffany's taking responsibility. That's all I've seen. Have they said how they were murdered? I've not seen that either, but I am waiting with bated breath. Again, I got into this with my own theory. I can't say it's all come to pass, so I'm waiting to see. I'm very interested, I'm sure, as every one of us are.
See, that's all it takes. That's how fast the information comes. I just had to look at Messenger. There was an article. I'll have to find the exact article to post it.
It's on the Oklahoman. Katie Clipper said it's on the Oklahoman.
Okay, let me pull that up real quick if you want to chat.
Medical examiner says they were not shot. And you are sure, Katie, it's in the Oklahoman? There are claims from both sides that seem to be hearsay. TBF was a nasty custody. It was a nasty TBF. It was a nasty custody battle. To be frank, is that what TBF means? I'm just guessing here. Thank you, Katie. Yeah, it's in the Oklahoman, Carrie. Evil Granny and her Thug Misfits. That sounds like a grunge band. I'm just saying. I have to add a little bit of humor to things. So, thank you, Carrie. Check your screenshots, Carrie. You're probably already there. So it was not gunshots. Okay. Mima 3, you agree we don't know the truth. We don't need to discuss it. Yep, that's where I stand. If I cannot find a rabbit hole to go down with that, then I don't have a rabbit hole to go down with that. And I think that's what gets me about this is I get it, understanding that that kind of thing happening to a minor is extremely emotionally charging, but being an individual who was a minor who was sexually assaulted, I'll tell you what, I would rather a parent focus on my needs versus their desire to go take action. That's how I will put that. Mean, manipulative, mother, grandmother, control freak. It will not surprise me if the saw is a lie. What does that mean, WTF? If the saw is a lie. I keep wanting to say pioneer protagonist, pine needle protagonist. Wow, we really are kindred spirits, estranged from toxic mother, molested as child, deep dives into human behavior, probably to survive, wondering why people do what they do. So that's why I coach individuals out of their own personal relationship issues, because I've been there. I went down that road myself, and I won't get into all that here because this is not about me. This is about the story at hand. And so, yeah, I'm always intrigued into the why people do stuff. That doesn't mean it's okay, but the why is interesting to me. And so I will figure out the why. And if you can't tell me, I'll sit with you for 5 minutes and I'll tell you why you're doing it. I've just gotten to that point in life where I analyze fast and quick. I just don't put it past TA to lie to get her way. Now you're probably not far off. Probably not. The link, there's the link. Okay, Katie has sent the link. SA, not saw, sorry, typo. Okay, thank you, WDF. I thought, what is happening? I know that I'm getting a little old, but I don't think I have that bad of hearing or listening or viewing problems.
Katie, where'd you send a link to?
I think she said it.
I mean, I know that the article's there, but I can't find the article.
Pure hatred drives Granny. I think to a degree, yeah, Lori. I think there is a lot of hatred and a desire to follow her deep-rooted belief system. I do believe that their belief system is a driving force for everything, which drives the emotions. It drives the logic or lack thereof. Phoebe says, I found this in the Oklahoman. The pathologist is still working to determine the cause of death. So there must be a couple of different articles out there. Our WR did say something in court documents about TA coaching the children for their therapy, so she could have lied. I've seen and heard things to that effect.
Yes.
Estella.
Yes. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, I've heard.
You're good. No, because you have to say something way more interesting than what I'm going to say.
I can't pull the article up for you guys because I can't find it. So I just have a screenshot in my inbox, but it does indeed, and I'll post it in the group when I get it. The pathologist is still working to determine the causes of death. The state's chief medical examiner, Dr. Pfeiffer, said Thursday they were not shot.
Okay. So it is out there. They're not shot, but we don't know what they were. So I invite, because I mean, we're 2.5 hours in. We'll probably have to pull this to a close, but I invite all of you to go back to the Facebook group page. That's a really great discussion to have respectfully. We have mods without a sense of humor in there now. They've been worn out. But that if they weren't shot, because that was my theory. So that part of my theory is down the tube. I thought for sure, and I went with a very stereotypical type of approach to that. It's desolate land, ranchers, farmers. There's always a gun nearby. It's convenient. And now the curiosities are heightened now. So that will be interesting rhetoric in the Facebook group page.
Let me put that link in the chat in case anybody's in here that hasn't joined the Facebook group. We try to keep it as rational and calm and civilized as possible. Anybody's ever ran a Facebook group, it's not always the easiest thing in the world to do.
So I'm an admin in another one, Carrie, and this is the busiest. I had to go excuse myself from the other admin group for a little bit because I'm love to help you all, and also. And it's a great group. It's a very good group. It's a women's supportive group. I'm like, I'll be back. I'll help you guys in a little bit because this one's busier.
So we were kind of told the manner of death, but I don't think we're going to say it until it comes out. But I think I do want to say I don't think it was the hammer. Right there, Tara.
Because in the affidavit.
That was to try to use to break the window or something.
Yeah.
It caused a broken, Veronica's sunglasses were broken. But the stun gun, there was a stun gun found by where they were buried, and they purchased 5 of those. So
right. So in the stun guns, I never entered into my original theory. So was
me either.
That threw me from like, well, that's off my bingo card, not to be that kind of morbidly funny. But it's you have a theory and you try to connect all the dots. And you're like, oh, okay, this went a little differently than expected for me. So,
right.
So again, I'll use humor to try and lighten the subject, folks. You can attack me, but it won't matter. Oh, what is that? What did Trilby Brow say? Pine Needle?
Yeah, when you join
by the group
Yeah, pretty much. I think I
Well,
work
then you
on like 2 hours of sleep because I'm so afraid of when I go to sleep, if all the
you'll miss
mods have to go to
something.
sleep at the same time, all hell will break loose again.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that was not a fun cleanup job. Not at
No,
all.
that's
I learned a lot of lessons really, really
oh
fast.
my goodness. Well, that's why I keep posting. If you guys are in there and you've seen the post, when I post in there, our mods are out of humor, they're out of jokes, and they're out of caffeine. Like, that's not a joke. They're just at the point of, I'm just going to start kicking people out left and right. We're like, hold up. And
Right.
then we do things we're like, okay, so maybe that's okay. There's just a lot, but, and
Mhm.
so the group that we're running is not ran like other groups. We are considerate of who's in there, be it friend or foe. We'll put it that way. Easiest way to put it, cover the bases. We're considerate of the support that's necessary for what's going on, and we're considerate of people that are out there that are just trying to have a discussion. We don't want anything harassing. We don't want Facebook to shut us down, and so we are ran a
No.
little differently than other Facebook groups. That's why I chose Carrie's in the very, very front of all of this, because it was legitimate, it was fair-minded, and that's
Yeah, and
how it's
like,
being ran.
think before you type kind of thing. It's a and
Mhm,
I've been guilty of it too. We all have, when you're behind the keyboard, our mouths sometimes can run more than they would if we were face to face. And I
mhm,
just try to keep that always in the back of my mind when I say something online. And
yeah,
that's not to say I haven't said things that I wish I hadn't have, because I definitely
yeah,
can get that way as well, especially in a heated discussion such as this, because there's so many different twists and turns to it that it's kind of hard not to get into a discussion
yeah,
that unfortunately sometimes turns wrong quickly, but we try to
yes,
clear all those up. So
yes. There's been a
lastly,
few.
yeah, I just wanted to play this since we hadn't seen it yet. It's really short, 1 minute and 52 seconds, and then I think we will probably wrap up. So give me a moment.
Sounds
Let's
good.
just watch
Community
this
Division
together.
correspondent Brian Enton has been crisscrossing the rural prairie from Kansas to Oklahoma and joins us now from Oklahoma. Just before we get going, Brian, I just wanted to see if you can zoom out for a second, because I've spent time out in rural Oklahoma and rural Arkansas, Kansas. A lot of our viewers have not. And give us a sense of just sort of how vast and how rural where you are and where these crimes were.
Yeah, I mean, look at this. It's beautiful country out here. Western Oklahoma. We're near Kansas. We're near Texas. We're near Colorado and New Mexico. All the states come together. It's farmland. It's pasture as long as the eye can see. You've got grain. You've got beef. You've got pork. Likely, some of the food you eat came from this part of the country. So it's beautiful, which is one of the reasons this has just been such a barbaric murder, and people here are so shocked. You mentioned that fifth person. His name is Paul Grice. He's also in the arrest affidavits. One of the suspect's daughters told police that he was involved. And we have learned through sources that he was called in, that he was taken into custody, that he was also questioned, but that he was let go, Leland. So Paul Grice was let go. He has not been charged. Why? We can't say for sure. It appears they don't have enough evidence. I mean, the suspect's daughter said he was involved, but once they got him in custody and started questioning him, there wasn't enough evidence, and he's out right now, Leland.
Wow. It's such a wild story. And then you add in God's Misfits and sort of the mystery of what other things these folks had planned. Brian, phenomenal reporting on this story. As always, we're going to keep following it. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com.
Okay. Yeah, that view of Oklahoma looks like we should see John Wayne and other cowboys riding across. Isn't that the truth? So that's really interesting to me. Kind of, I think was what Tara and I talked about. Maybe they just don't have enough. It's really hard to imagine that um Cora's daughter would have put his name in there for no reason. Just don't see that as forthcoming, and as difficult of a position that she was already in. I don't see her adding to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to watch how that plays out. And yeah, on the screen, that is a Sebastian Rogers case out of Tennessee. I followed that pretty heavily as well. And then it just got to be too much drama every night, night after night lives. And that's just not my thing. When something new comes out, then I'll pay attention. But they do. And Road Gypsy, they did that when they interviewed me too. And at first I was like, well, that was kind of rude. But then I watched the other one right after and it was the same way. And now I've just kind of realized that they're all kind of like that. But yeah, it does feel like you're being cut off. So he was questioned and let go. Yeah, it was kind of surprising. Too much drama for sure. Yes. So talking about Sebastian Rogers' YouTube community, there's an awful lot of drama. And I don't mind watching some of the drama, but not when it comes to like missing children's parents or victims or things like that. I don't want anything to do with that. I believe until you got some strong evidence to start saying that those parents are guilty, you probably shouldn't be saying that. So, but that's how I do my channel. And everybody else has a right to do things their way as well. So, and like I said, it's not that I don't watch them. It's just not the way here. We just like to be as factual as we possibly can. And sometimes those facts change as we learn more down the road. But that's what we're trying to do. But anyway, anything else, Tara?
No, we've covered a lot.
A whole lot. And thank you guys so much for hanging in there. Definitely was a lot of information. The chat will remain on the screen. So for the replay, the links to those articles I did read earlier are in that chat. And then I believe that you can also find them, and I'll double check, but they should be in the Facebook group. If you look under the featured tab, that's where we're putting all of the important factual information. So for the most up-to-date factual information. Now, that's not to say the news has gotten some things wrong too. I do kind of feel like they are sensationalizing this whole Misfits thing. I didn't feel that way before, but I kind of do now. I do believe it is limited to these 4 families. I mean, maybe there'll be another 1 or 2, but I just don't. I think it's really just a very, very, very small group of people. So that's our thoughts.
Yes.
Thank you, Tara.
Thank you.
Thank you to everybody in our chat, our mods, all the people that send us the information that helps with our researching deeply. Because there's no way that, Tara and I don't have the time to do all that by ourselves. There's no way possible we could ever get all of this on our own. So we really appreciate every single one of you. And I think that's it. You guys have a wonderful evening. And maybe we'll see you back here in a couple of days. All right.
Good night.
Bye.